Chapter 897. In the legends of his previous life, there was an almighty. With a flip of his hand, he suppressed a ferocious monkey under his palm. His palm turned into a five-finger mountain. The 5 fingers were connected to the 5 elements and were in harmony with heaven and earth. With the help of the 5 elements of heaven and earth, he suppressed the monkey. A total of 500 years. It corresponded to metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It had boundless power. The 5 fingers of this palm turned into a mountain. It was enough to suppress ancient times. Between the palm, the creation of heaven and earth was activated. This was the true strength of the Huangji creation palm. 5 fingers turned into a mountain connected to the 5 elements. Di Shirtian, you want to suppress me? Ku Rong stood in the valley and looked at the purple gold mountain that seemed to cover the sky and crush the sun. A look of humiliation flashed in his eyes. Who was he? He was the unkillable little overlord from ancient times. No, that was wrong. He was the unkillable king, Ku Rong. He was going to be suppressed by a junior with a flip of his palm. This was a blatant humiliation. The 5-finger mountain even faintly sealed the entire space around. It sealed off all escape routes. Humph, I want to see how you can survive. Di Shirtian sneered at Ku Rong below and said without holding back. Ku Rong let out a wild roar towards the sky. His face was filled with a terrifying malevolence. His entire body suddenly started to change. His originally withered face, which was like rotten wood, started to squirm intensely at a speed visible to the naked eye. Traces of blood started to appear on his face. Suddenly, his face became as translucent as jade, revealing a rosy blood color. It turned into an unusually young face. The originally withered body also recovered its ruddy color in an instant. There was flesh and blood. It was as if there was a majestic vitality in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. While his entire body was changing, it expanded violently. 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet. In an instant, he turned into a 3,000 feet tall giant, holding the black and white seal of life and death in his hand. A seal was sent towards the 5-finger mountain that was crushing down, intending to smash the 5-finger mountain into pieces. Bang! The ancient seal and the 5-finger mountain collided violently. The power of life and death within the seal of withering prosperity intertwined and erupted with boundless destructive power. Coupled with the power of the seal of natural spiritual treasure itself, when it collided with the 5-finger mountain, it had a boundless advantage. With a cracking sound, fine cracks appeared on the 5-finger mountain. It was as if he was about to collapse on the spot. Clang! At this moment, a light flashed above Di Shirtian's head and an ancient, sparkling bell appeared instantly. It quickly flew to the top of the 5 Fingers mountain and landed on the mountain. It spun and spun. Waves of vast samsara power surged into the 5 Fingers mountain like a tide. All the cracks on the mountain closed up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Middle grade connate spirit treasure. The power of reincarnation, no. How could you possibly have such a foundation? After the 5-finger mountain received the support of all the heavens, it seemed to have become 100 million times heavier in an instant as it came crashing down in an overbearing manner. The pressure caused Ku Rong's entire body to involuntarily bend. Drops of blood continuously seeped out from every pore on his body. Inch by inch, it crushed down. Good, this guy is not a good person. He deserves to be crushed by the mountain. We must suppress him for a few more years. Tian Ro said indignantly. Seeing Ku Rong's appearance, she was full of joy. She couldn't wait for him to be suppressed. Mr. D's cultivation is indeed unpredictable. He has such a terrifying power with just a flip of his palm. I'm afraid there are not many in the Celestial clan who can withstand more than a few of his attacks. Heavenly thought to himself. The scene in front of him was too fierce. Having grown up in the clan, he had never seen such a scene. Rumble. At this moment, the void under his feet suddenly distorted and turned into a huge black vortex in an instant. It was like a terrifying black hole. From the black vortex, Countless spaces were distorted. At the same time, it emitted an endless devouring power. This devouring power carried a supreme will that could devour all things. It could refine everything. It swept in all directions. Countless chi of heaven and earth, and even all things in the void, were swept into the vortex and refined in an instant. Tion and heavenly were above the vortex, so it could be said that they bore the brunt of it. The vast devouring power wrapped all of them in the vortex in an instant. The endless devouring power constantly fell on their bodies, wanting to absorb every trace of power and flesh from their bodies. There was nothing that it could not devour. Big Brother Yin, Mr. D, my cultivation is fading. What kind of vortex is this? And it has a strange power. This vortex is devouring my power. Tian Xiu, cried out with a pale face. The power in her body was constantly being devoured by the vortex through her pores. My power is also fading. If this continues, I'm afraid it won't be long before I'm completely drained by this vortex. Mr. D. Heavenly's eyes were filled with shock. He could not stop the power in his body from fading away. The heavenly change of the north, the whale devours of the north. So you are the carefree king. Good, good, good. I was wondering why true Lord Ku Rong dared to stay and fight with me. It turns out that he joined forces with you. But you think you're qualified to refine me. My immortal emperor body. As long as I don't want to, you can forget about absorbing even a trace of power from my body. Sakura sneered at the whirlpool that appeared outside his body. 6 immortal divine rings were constantly revolving outside his body, instantly wrapping heavenly and the others in the middle of the divine rings. The powerful suction force in the surroundings was suddenly blocked outside. The immortal emperor body was to cultivate one's body into a true body. The body formed a world of its own, and not a trace of power would leak out. With the divine rings blocking, the whale devours of the north could not absorb even a trace of true power. Since I can't absorb it, then I will break your immortal emperor body. Let's see how you will not leak. The carefree king's voice strangely came from the void. Roar! In the void, a strange feather fan suddenly flapped, and suddenly, a huge golden-winged rock rushed out from the feather fan. The rock spread its wings, which were at least a few thousand feet wide. The golden claws under its body were strong and powerful, capable of trapping tigers and fighting dragons. Its mouth could penetrate any solid object in an instant. Every feather was as sharp and terrifying as a sword. Its body was emitting the powerful aura of an ancient heavenly demon. It let out a high-pitched cry and swooped down fiercely from the void, clawing at Di Shitian's head. The rock was so strong that it could tear a true dragon apart with one claw. Any one of its wings could penetrate heaven and earth. When a claw came down, the void was forcibly torn apart. Carefree King, do you think I'm still the same person who allowed you to bully me in the endless void? Let me tell you, you're finished today. You are completely finished. If I want to kill you, it will be like slaughtering a pig. Di Shitian's expression was cold. He stepped out step by step. The immortal Emperor Heaven battling steps. A step to collapse mountains and rivers. Another step to fall stars. 3 steps to rotate the sun and moon. 4 steps to break the desolation. 5 steps to heaven and earth. The whale of the northern underworld was known as the top divine ability of heaven and earth. Once it was used, any power or vitality in the area would be instantly swallowed. It was extremely terrifying. Any attack that landed on it would be swallowed and refined, like the most terrifying black hole. It was hard to erase. However, Sakura's 5 steps did not reveal the royal true force. Instead, it was all condensed on his legs. With his own supreme demon body and vast physical strength, he forcefully stepped out a supreme power that could annihilate the heavens and earth. Every step he took contained a supreme will to battle the heavens and the earth. In addition, his royal immortal body did not reveal his true body. As long as he did not want to, the power would not leak at all. Boom, boom, boom. The vortex under his feet, with every step he took, shattered the space under his feet. The vortex was shaking violently and collapsing. At the same time, his right hand directly grabbed at the giant rock's descending claw. This grab seemed to have countless stars revolving, carrying with it a boundless universe. There was a vast Xing he revolving in his palm. Royal Fortune palm. Xing he revolving rotation. Blocking in front of the giant rock's claws strangely blasted into the right hand. There seemed to be a boundless void in the hand, and then the giant rock's entire body was swept into the palm. Kacha! Gently clenching his right hand, countless stars revolved, and the giant rock was crushed on the spot. Then, it completely disappeared. Bang! The vortex outside his body also completely collapsed. Shurtion walked out step by step with Heavenly Flame and the other two. Clang! Tiger's soul was instantly unsheathed, and with a backhand, it stabbed towards his back. This stab was like a sharp arrow, sweeping forward like lightning. On the blade, the image of 3,000 gods and demons appeared. Poof! In midair, there was the sound of the blade stabbing into a body. In the void, there was a distortion, and a snow-white-robed Freedom King appeared. Tiger's soul directly pierced through his chest and carried his body towards the Five Fingers Mountain. With a crack, Tiger's soul nailed Freedom King's body to the Five Fingers Mountain. The vast power of the gods and demons was constantly destroying his body. If you want to kill me, then bring your original body. You want to swallow I with just a Dharma idol avatar? I can destroy your Dharma idol with a flick of my finger. Shurtion looked at Freedom King with disdain. This was just a Dharma idol avatar. However, destroying this Dharma idol was enough to make Freedom King feel pain for a while. If the Dharma idol was destroyed, it would take thousands of years to condense another one. Otherwise, he would need the 1,000-dragon rising aperture pill. Once the Dharma idol was destroyed, one of the apertures in the body would close again. It was extremely difficult to open it again. Shurtion, I will not let you go. Freedom King's eyes emitted a cold look, and there was no longer any elegance in them. As soon as his voice fell, his entire body was annihilated inch by inch and completely collapsed. Rumble! In the sky, the Five Fingers Mountain came crashing down heavily. In addition to the Bell of Heaven's reincarnation, True Lord Ku Rong could not withstand it all. He was crushed into the ground like a green onion, smashed into the ground. He landed heavily on the ground. As soon as it touched the ground, the five elements' origin on the Five Fingers Mountain immediately connected with the ground, as if it had taken root. Whoosh! At this moment, there was a sharp sound behind Shurtion's head. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 898. Whoosh! An icy blue light instantly shot out from the forest, shooting towards Shurtion's shoulder. Vaguely, this arrow contained a strange opportunity that locked onto his entire body. Even if he flew into the sky or burrowed into the ground, the arrow would still be able to follow him closely. The arrow contained the power of ice, but it did not leak out. Hidden but not released. Without any warning, Shurtion turned around and flicked the arrow with his right hand. Bang! The finger and the arrow collided with each other. Suddenly, the sound of metal clashing against stone could be heard. The overbearing and pure royal true force was released and stopped the arrow on the spot. In midair, the arrow was destroyed inch by inch at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into ice powder. Shurtion retracted his finger and turned his hand behind his back. Vaguely, a drop of purple gold blood seeped out from his finger, but disappeared in the blink of an eye, as if it had never appeared. What a terrifying arrow! Even Madman D, who has cultivated the 6th level of the Imperial Indestructible Body, was wounded by it. I wonder who shot this arrow. Dark roared loudly and revealed a shocked expression. He was the one who was most aware of how strong Sakura's body was. However, it could be seen that the archer had no intention of killing him. Otherwise, The arrow would definitely not have hit his shoulder, but his head, throat, heart, and other important places. Who is it? D. Chertion raised his eyes and looked into the forest. There was no change in his expression. He just calmly spat out a sentence. This arrow. Mr. D, be careful. It's from the elemental fairy tribe. Heavenly's face suddenly changed, and he hurriedly warned. In the forbidden area of Heaven's Gate, only the elemental fairy tribe has such amazing archery skills. Tian Xiao gently bit her lip and said in a delicate voice, Whoosh! Pushing aside the leaves, 3 beautiful and handsome young elves with a pair of long ears walked out from the forest. Among them, there were 2 men and 1 woman. When the 2 men walked, it was obvious that they were half a step behind the female elf. However, the 2 men seemed to be twins. They looked exactly the same, and it was impossible to tell who was the older one and who was the younger one. They were all wearing green armor made from the fur of some kind of fierce beast and were unusually light. Their slender bodies accentuated their extraordinary auras, and they each held a green elven battle bow in their hands. On their backs, they carried a special quiver of divine arrows. The most dazzling of them all was the female elf at the front. She looked to be no more than 18 years old, and she was wearing a green dress woven from green leaves. Her snow-white, slender legs were exposed, and she looked very seductive. Her tight dress showed off her perfect figure. She didn't look very old, but there was a pair of proud peaks on her chest. Her 2 jade-like arms were also exposed. Her body exuded a natural charm, and she had an amazing charm. There was a multicolored ring on his forehead, and a jade-green hexagonal crystal was embedded in it. In her hand was a 5-colored war bow that was intertwined with countless mysterious runes. The runes were like natural tree patterns, and with just a glance, one could feel its extraordinariness. Similarly, there was also a quiver on her back. Inside the quiver were jade-colored sharp arrows. She was like a bright pearl in the natural world. Elemental Fairy Tribe. D. Chertion's gaze fell on their ears. You can't kill Master Ku Rong. The elven girl walked out of the forest, glanced at Heavenly, then looked seriously at D. Chertion and said. Her voice was like a magpie, crystal clear and pleasant to the ear, crisp and moving. It was like the sound of nature, but there was a strange firmness and persistence in her voice. Oh, D. Chertion heard it, but didn't immediately deny it. Instead, he asked with interest, Why? Princess Mingzhu, you must save me. If I die, then your elven race will also be in great trouble. Your elemental sacred tree will wither, and you won't be able to get the blessing of the sacred tree in the future. Under the 5-Finger Mountain, Master Ku Rong was pressed down. He was only relying on the seal of life and death to temporarily hold up a small space, so he wasn't crushed to death on the spot. His head popped out, and when he saw the elven girl, his eyes lit up, and he quickly shouted, You talk too much. D. Chertion frowned slightly and pointed at the bell of Heaven's reincarnation on the 5-Finger Mountain. Clang! The ancient bell rang, and the sound of reincarnation poured into Ku Rong's ears. His mind shook, and even the divine light in his eyes seemed to be fading. He no longer shouted, Sir, Master Ku Rong is an honored guest of my elemental elf tribe. If he has offended you in any way, please forgive him. If you're willing, the elf tribe is willing to compensate you appropriately as long as you can hand Master Ku Rong over to me. Princess Mingzhu's bright eyes stared calmly at D. Chertion's face as if she was waiting for his reply. Their sincerity was also fully displayed in their tone. Do you know the grudge between me and him? You want to resolve it for no reason, D. Chertion said calmly. May I know what grudge you have with Ku Rong? Princess Mingzhu asked curiously. What grudge do I have with him? D. Chertion scoffed coldly and said, He once conspired against my wife and wanted to steal her divine power and foundation. He wanted to destroy the place where I settled down and lived. He slaughtered my subordinates from the demon clan. Can you resolve such a grudge? He looked at Princess Mingzhu, who had a natural charm, with a half-smile. Princess Mingzhu was stunned when she heard that. Whether it was conspired against someone's wife or slaughtered his subordinates, it was an irreconcilable grudge no matter where it was. If one wanted to resolve it, one could only return an eye for an eye. One would not rest until one of them was dead. This kind of karma was huge. Even she dared not say anything to resolve it. Nevertheless, when she looked at Master Ku Rong, who was suppressed under the Five-Finger Mountain, she seemed to have made a decision. She said in a deep voice, "Perhaps Ku Rong has offended you, but he's extremely important to the elemental elf tribe. If you can let him go, the elf tribe will owe you a favor, and we won't refuse any requests in the future." Princess Mingzhu clearly could not let go of Ku Rong because of something, so she had no choice but to speak sincerely. When she said that, it meant that the entire elf tribe owed him a favor. If he took it out at a critical moment, it might be able to turn the situation around. "The elemental sacred tree in your tribe is withering." Di Shirtian did not answer immediately. Instead, he changed the topic. He seemed to be asking casually. He sharply grasped the key point from Ku Rong's words. Princess Mingzhu frowned slightly and glanced at Ku Rong, who was suppressed under the Five-Finger Mountain, with some dissatisfaction. This was originally a secret of the elf tribe, but he exposed it. If it was used by someone with ulterior motives, it would undoubtedly be a disaster for the elf tribe. Elemental sacred tree? Lunatic D, this is a good opportunity. Who knows, we might be able to rope in the elemental elf tribe, Ming said thoughtfully. What's the relationship between the elemental sacred tree and the elf tribe? Di Shirtian immediately asked. He sharply sensed that this was indeed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The elemental sacred tree is not an ordinary sacred tree. It's an innate spiritual root that has existed since ancient times. Ming licked his lips and said in a strange voice, "This spiritual root is very special. The tree contains the origin of the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Any branch or leaf is the best material. It's the 5 elements divine wood. It's rooted in heaven and earth and absorbs the essence of the 5 elements. It can bear elemental sacred fruits. There are no fruits in the sacred fruits. Instead, it's like a placenta that gives birth to the innate elemental elves. It can be said that the elemental sacred tree is the mother ancestor of the elf tribe." Ming quickly explained. The elemental sacred fruit only bore fruit once every 1,000 years. It gave birth to elves. However, only the first batch were innate elves. They had innate physiques and amazing aptitudes. There were only 3,000 of them. After that, the elf tribe could reproduce through the union of men and women. They could also give birth to a batch of elves every 1,000 years through the elemental sacred tree. However, the elves born in the future were all acquired physiques. There were no innate physiques. However, their aptitudes were also much better than those born through union. The bloodline in their bodies was purer and stronger. Therefore, every time the elves born from the elemental sacred tree were called sacred elves. When the sacred elves married other elves, the bloodline in the elf tribe would never be weak or exhausted. Many powerful elves would be born every time. A large number of powerhouses would be born. Therefore, the status of the elemental sacred tree in the elf tribe was incomparable to anyone else. It was more important than life itself. It had always been taken care of, afraid of the slightest harm. And once something happened to the elemental sacred tree, it would be a fatal blow to the elf tribe. That's right. For some reason, the life of the primogenitor began to fade 1,000 years ago. Princess Mingzhu pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "The life of the elemental sacred tree is fading? No wonder you elves suddenly came to my celestial clan's camp to ask for the source of life. After being refused by the patriarch, you directly try to rob it." Hearing this, Heavenly's face showed a look of realization. "I'm sorry, for the sake of the primogenitor, no matter how difficult it is, we elves will never shrink back." Princess Mingzhu looked at Heavenly and the others. Although there was a trace of apology, it was immediately replaced by determination and persistence. There was a strong temperament in her. "Please hand over Kurong to me. Mingzhu will be very grateful." Princess Mingzhu respectfully bowed to Di Shirtian. What if I don't hand it over? Di Shirtian said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Then don't blame us for being impolite. The two young elves behind Princess Mingzhu took a step forward at the same time. With a cold face, they quickly pulled out a green arrow from behind their backs and knocked it on their bows. With a casual pull, the bow was pulled into a full moon shape. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 899. Chinese Valentine's Day is here. Brothers and sisters, I wish you all a good time on Chinese Valentine's Day. The green arrow suddenly burst out with a bright green light. Inside it, there seemed to be a violent and mighty force, and there was a faint light of poison. The tip of the arrow instantly pointed at Di Shirtian's throat and between his eyebrows. A kind of arrow aura broke through the air, as if it was going to pierce through him immediately. You're threatening me. Di Shirtian's face suddenly turned cold, and his body suddenly emitted an emperor's majesty. The terrifying pressure was formless, and it rolled toward the twin elves. Strange ripples appeared in the air. The two elves were ancient demon Saint Peak powerhouses. They already had 1 foot in the ancient heavenly demon realm. As for Princess Mingzhu, she was obviously an ancient heavenly demon realm powerhouse. Threatening? He hated being threatened the most. It's not a threat. I just hope that you can hand Ku Rome to the elf tribe. When we return to the tribe, no matter what you want, as long as we have it, we can give it to you. Princess Mingzhu said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. In her words, there was a kind of conviction that she was determined to obtain Ku Rome. Even if she had to pay a high price, she had to get it. I hate threats the most. If I don't kill Ku Rome today, the world will think that I'm really afraid of the 5 Elements elf tribe if word gets out. Di Shirtian sneered and stomped his foot in front of the 5 Fingers Mountain. Instantly, he crossed the boundary between heaven and earth and appeared on the 5 Fingers Mountain. If I want to kill someone, who can stop me? Clang! He instantly pulled out the tiger soul from the 5 Fingers Mountain. The unfettered king's Dharma Laksana had already been smashed into pieces. On the blade, the golden saber light rippled out like a fishbone. The golden war tiger inside roared toward the sky, emitting a bloodthirsty battle intent. Kill! 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 Vaguely, the war tiger's mouth emitted a murderous roar. How dare you! The 2 elven guards' eyes were sharper than an eagle's. When they saw Di Shirtian's action, they immediately released the war bows in their hands that were drawn into a full moon. Whoosh whoosh! 2 green arrow beams shot out, as if they could pierce through the sun and moon. They shot towards Di Shirtian's forehead and throat like lightning. Wherever the arrow beams passed, space shattered. The power contained within the arrow beams was actually comparable to an ancient early heavenly fae. It emitted a terrifying poisonous light. The chi in the arrow had completely locked onto him. Oof. If I want to kill someone, who can stop me? Di Shirtian's eyes flashed with a dangerous light when he saw the 2 arrow lights. With a thought, he activated the immortal emperor body. 6 immortal divine rings appeared from his body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Sorrow, anger, bliss, fear, hearing, and taste. The 6 types of imperishable divine halos released 6 terrifying imperishable intents that instantly covered the entire space. At the same time, the tiger soul in his hand turned around and stabbed straight at Ku Rome's head. Bang bang! When the 2 arrow beams reached the 6 imperishable divine halos, there was a violent explosion. At the same time, the domineering power released from the divine halos backfired on the arrows. The 2 arrows immediately exploded and were annihilated. Oh no, why did I suddenly think of the fall of our ancestor? I'm so sad. The young elf on the left had tears in his eyes. Even the 2 of us together couldn't break through his defense. How terrifying is his strength? The elf on the right had a face full of fear. His entire mind was filled with fear. In his eyes, Di Tian was like the most terrifying demon god in the world. His mind was instantly corroded by the imperishable intents. No, Di Tian, you can't kill me. If you kill me, you'll offend the entire elf tribe. When the Elf King attacks, you'll definitely die. Princess Mingzhu, quickly save me. I have a way to help you save the Five Elements Sacred Tree. Don't you want to know the reason why the Five Elements Sacred Tree's vitality is waning? True Lord Ku Rong shouted with a face full of fear. Mister, I'm sorry to offend you. When Princess Mingzhu heard that, she frowned slightly. She pulled open the war bow in her hand inch by inch. However, she didn't pull it to a full moon. She only pulled it halfway. In the war bow, a scarlet-red arrow naturally condensed. Rumble. The moment she drew the battle bow, the entire space around her began to tremble violently, involuntarily. There was a series of rumbles as the vast power of heaven and earth surged into the battle bow like a tide. Whoosh! The battle arrow immediately turned into a stream of light and shot toward the tiger soul that was about to pierce Ku Rong's head. Boom! 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 The battle arrow contained blazing and violent flame energy. Wherever it passed, there would be terrifying explosions in the space. A large area of the void was instantly destroyed by the explosions. However, at the same time, Di Tian casually formed a seal. A pitch-black ancient seal appeared in front of the battle arrow. The figure of Tao Tai appeared in the ancient seal. A powerful devouring force formed a black hole and swallowed the battle arrow in the blink of an eye. Bang! A terrifying explosive force came from the ancient seal and blew it up on the spot. The battle arrow and ancient seal were annihilated at the same time. What a terrifying arrow! Di Tian's eyes narrowed. The battle arrow was so powerful that it did not possess the combat power of an early-stage heavenly demon at all. Legend has it that when the Five Elements Fairy Clan was born in ancient times, the Five Elements Sacred Tree dropped a branch that contained endless Five Elements origin energy. In the end, the Fairy Clan found an innate spiritual embryo and fused the innate spiritual embryo with the branch. They even found five elements spiritual pearls. After fusing them, they were refined into a Five Elements Demon Destroyer bow. Its power was extremely domineering and terrifying. Even if an ancient heavenly demon saint obtained this battle bow, as long as his cultivation level was high enough, he could use the power of the battle bow to kill an ancient heavenly demon. An ancient heavenly demon could almost fight against an unparalleled expert with a battle bow. In ancient times, this supreme treasure was a top-notch existence. If I'm not mistaken, it should be the one in Princess Mingzhu's hand. Dark roared madly in shock. With Sakura's heaven-defying battle prowess, the ancient seal that he condensed couldn't be broken by even an ancient peak sky demon. However, it was shattered by a battle arrow that was only half drawn and annihilated at the same time. If it was drawn into a full moon, how terrifying would its power be? Five Elements Demon Destroyer bow. Di Tian's eyes narrowed. No! At the same time, the sharp blade of the tiger soul fell from the sky and pierced Ku Rong's head into the ground. The green pearl in the tiger's soul shone with a demonic light. The moment it pierced through Ku Rong's head, the tiger's soul began to devour his flesh and blood. In the blink of an eye, one could see Ku Rong's body shriveling and becoming thinner at a speed visible to the naked eye. Large chunks of flesh and blood were devoured. In a few breaths, Ku Rong's entire body was devoured completely. Not even his bones were left behind. When the two elven guards saw this, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They took a step forward, their faces full of anger. There's no divine soul, Di Tian murmured at the same time. What is true Lord Ku Rong's real body? There's no divine soul in his body. How is this possible? Could it be that his divine soul has completely merged with his body? Immortal and indestructible like a ruler? Or is he just a puppet? Dark originally planned to take Ku Rong's divine soul out of his body and throw him into the underworld prison to interrogate him about the secret of immortality. He did not expect that there was not even a divine soul in Ku Rong's body. This was simply unbelievable. Ku Rong is indeed not simple. There's a big secret in his body. I have a feeling that this guy is not dead yet, Di Tian said thoughtfully. He was also secretly shocked. This time, he did not shatter Ku Rong. Instead, he directly used the tiger soul to devour his flesh and blood. He was sure that there was not a single trace of flesh and blood left in Ku Rong's body. All of it had been devoured by the tiger's soul. Even so, he still had a feeling that Ku Rong was definitely not dead yet. This kind of feeling was abnormally subtle. King Ku Rong who can't be killed. Lunatic D. If there's a chance, you must find a way to bring King Ku Rong to the underworld prison. I'm sure I can interrogate him about the secret of immortality bit by bit. If I can get the secret of immortality, TSK, that's the real greatest wealth. The greatest treasure. Nether shouted ferociously. In ancient times, there were countless experts who were interested in Ku Rong's secret of immortality. However, none of them knew what he relied on to be able to resurrect again and again after death. This kind of ability was not an ordinary kind of terrifying and heaven-defying. It's over. Ku Rong is dead. The Ancestor will never be able to recover. When the two elven guards saw Ku Rong being devoured, they felt as if the whole sky had collapsed. They had completely turned into ashes. Ku Rong is dead. Princess Mingzhu looked at the tiger soul that was inserted into the ground and took a deep breath to suppress the emotions in her heart. She looked up at Di Tian, who was standing on the Five Fingers Mountain. She pulled the Five Elements Demon Breaker bow in her hand inch by inch, and a crystal-clear jade arrow appeared on the bowstring from the quiver on her back. True Lord Ku Rong's death was a disaster for the elves. The Five Elements sacred tree was more important than their lives to the elves. When the sacred tree encountered problems, its life was rapidly draining away. The elves immediately took out all the source of life that they had accumulated to help the Ancestor survive. However, as the source of life continued to be consumed, the source of life that existed in the elves was almost exhausted. However, True Lord Ku Rong suddenly appeared and said that there was a way to save the Five Elements sacred tree. This was undoubtedly a ray of hope for the entire elves. All along, even if Ku Rong had many requests for the elves, no matter how excessive they would try their best to fulfill them. It was all for that glimmer of hope. However, that glimmer of hope was destroyed by Di Tian on the spot. To Princess Mingzhu, this was an enormous responsibility. The thought that she was a sinner in the elves was pressing down on her so much that she almost could not breathe. Kill him. There was only one thought that flashed through Princess Mingzhu's mind. The Five Elements Demon Breaker bow was pulled into a full moon instantly. The tip of the arrow was quickly aimed at Di Tian. Wait, I have a way to save the Five Elements sacred tree. Di Tian looked at Princess Mingzhu, who was pulling the bow, and said calmly, "If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading." Chapter 900. Valentine's Day is here. Damn, I can only spend it writing again. How sad. Brothers, if you have tickets, please help me buy 2 tickets to soothe my broken heart. Wait, I have a way to save the Five Elements sacred tree. That one sentence was like the sharpest arrow, directly piercing into Princess Mingzhu's mind. That beautiful body couldn't help but violently tremble. The arrow that was originally aimed at Sakura, in an instant, quickly moved downwards. It moved away from him and pointed at the Five Fingers Mountain below him. The Five Elements Demon Breaker bow that was pulled into a full moon suddenly left the bowstring and shot forward at lightning speed. Bang! The battle arrow shot into the Five Fingers Mountain, and a domineering demon breaker power instantly erupted. The entire Five Fingers Mountain instantly exploded into pieces. It was annihilated inch by inch. It turned into nothingness on the spot. The Five Finger Mountain that even Ku Rong could not break was destroyed by the arrow as easily as crushing dry weeds and rotten wood. What a terrifying battle arrow. It's enough to kill an expert at the peak of the ancient heaven demon realm. No wonder it said that those who have the 5 elements demon breaker bow can go against the heavens and fight against the unparalleled experts, even in the ancient heaven demon realm. Dark was secretly shocked and exclaimed repeatedly. The 5 elements demon breaker bow's attack was really unparalleled. It could even shoot down the sun in the sky. You can save my clan's ancestor? Princess Mingju's bright eyes stared at Di Shurtian without blinking. Princess, don't believe him. He killed Ku Rong, which is equivalent to destroying our clan's hope. The withering of our clan's ancestor is probably unstoppable. He's the one who cut off all our clan's hopes. Please use the 5 elements demon breaker bow to kill this demon and bring him back to the clan. We'll hand him over to the king for punishment. The 2 elf guards immediately said with hatred. Ku Rong was too important to the elf tribe. After Ku Rong saw the 5 elements sacred tree, it only took him 3 days to restore the sacred tree's vitality. Even the loss of vitality was slowed down by more than 100 times. This ability made almost all the elves believe that he had the ability to save the 5 elements sacred tree. Now that Di Shurtian had destroyed this hope, it was equivalent to cutting off their ancestors' vitality. Tell me, how can I not hate and be angry? Shut up. Di Shurtian glanced at the 2 guards and casually said 2 words. His voice seemed to contain some kind of inconceivable law. A mysterious and powerful force suddenly fell on them. The 2 guards opened their mouths and spoke hurriedly, but what they spat out were unconscious notes. There was no sound at all, which was very strange. Golden mouth and jade words. Princess Mingju's expression changed slightly. She instantly thought of this legendary ability. The 2 guards took a step back in fear. The feeling of not being able to make any sound despite being able to speak was not an ordinary feeling of terror. Do you really have a way to help our ancestor? Princess Mingju asked again, but this time there was a hint of confidence in her voice. I can't guarantee whether or not I can save your ancestor. After all, I haven't seen your ancestor's situation with my own eyes. However, even if I can't save your ancestor, I can still keep your ancestor alive, Di Shurtian said calmly. An ancient jade box appeared in his hand, and he casually opened it. Inside the jade box, a crystal-clear green crystal appeared in front of Princess Mingju and the others. What a powerful life force. Mr. D, is this the source of life in the box? Tian Xiu's delicate face was full of surprise. He was secretly horrified. Who is Mr. D? Not only is his combat strength heaven-defying, but an ancient early-stage heavenly demon was also beaten to the point that he couldn't even fight back. And now, he casually took out such a precious source of life. Even in the clan, there are only a few hundred of them. She stared at Di Shurtian with a pair of curious eyes, sizing him up. 100 source of life? Princess Mingju's calm face involuntarily showed an expression of excitement and desire. She unconsciously took a step toward Di Shurtian. In the jade box, there were a total of 100 source of life that contained powerful life force. Every one of them was crystal clear and emitted a tempting light. Even though she was close to nature and had a stable state of mind, she could not help but be secretly happy at this moment. This is great. 100 source of life. Just one of them can extend our ancestor's life by 10 years. 100 of them can give our ancestor another 1,000 years of life. She looked at the jade box with a burning gaze. All right, I believe in you. Please come with me. Princess Mingju immediately made up her mind and said softly. Her voice was like the sound of nature, making people unconsciously feel close to her. Mr. D, you can't go. The elf clan is despicable and shameless. Not long ago, they forced our great elders 5 Decay to come early in order to snatch the source seeds of life stored in our celestial clan. You have 100 source seeds in your hands. Once you go there, the elf clan will turn against you. Tian Xiu tugged at Di Shurtian's sleeve while looking at Princess Mingju with vigilance. That's right, the elves are not good people. Tian Ro also softly said. Mr. D, as long as you don't want to go, we will not be threatened by the elves even if we die. Heavenly's body was overflowing with a resolute aura. His face was full of unyielding determination. Princess Mingzhu's eyes flashed with a touch of bitterness when she heard this. She did not refute. For their ancestor, even if the elves were despicable and shameless, they would still do it without hesitation. Even if they were spurned by thousands, they would still have no regrets. No need. I believe in Princess Mingzhu. D. Shirdan calmly said, then looked at Heavenly and said, I will go to the elves. You don't have to go. Don't worry. I will be fine. If I want to go, there are not many in this world that can stop me. There was a strong sense of confidence in his words. Heavenly and the others showed a struggling look on their faces. After a long while, Heavenly cautiously said, Mr. D, please don't worry. I will immediately ask Tianxiu and Ro-Er to return to the elves. We will ask our chief to go to the elves to save you. If they dare to harm you, the elves will not live under the same sky. The last sentence exuded a strong sense of threat. Obviously, it was said to Princess Mingzhu. Go! The original childishness on Heavenly's body disappeared in an instant. What he saw made him mature quickly. Without thinking, he quickly took Tianxiu, and Ro-Er into the gate of heaven and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Obviously, they went back to the celestial tribe to ask for reinforcements. Let's go. Di Shirtian watched them leave, but he didn't stop them. Instead, he looked at Princess Mingzhu and said, Please ask Mr. D and Mingzhu to come. Princess Mingzhu didn't hesitate and quickly followed them into the gate of heaven. Di Shirtian followed closely behind. I don't know what happened to the elven race's 5 elements sacred tree. Even with its innate spiritual roots, it actually showed signs of life force withering away. Lunatic D, I'm afraid the truth behind this isn't as simple as it seems. Ming muttered in a slightly surprised manner. With the importance the elves place on the 5 elements sacred tree, if I can save the tree, it's possible to take the entire elven race for my own use and become a part of the demon city. The elves' archery skills are rare in the world. What Di Shirtian valued was the combat power of the entire elven race. The 5 elements sacred tree was an innate spiritual root. Considering how long it had lived, it should have already given birth to consciousness. It could be said to be a different kind of life form. Once he gained its friendship, it would be extremely beneficial for him to take over the elves. Following Princess Mingzhu, they quickly shuttled through the gate of heaven. In his hand, there was a strange compass and a strange powder that he sprinkled on his body. Even if he passed by the ferocious beasts, he wouldn't wake them up. All kinds of secret techniques were an eye-opener for him. He didn't know how many gates of heaven they passed through. It took a full 6 hours. Along the way, they went straight from top to bottom and actually entered the 43rd gate of heaven's forbidden area. The gate of heaven's forbidden area was like an inverted pyramid with a total of 49 levels. They had reached the 43rd level, which meant that they had entered the core of the gate of heaven's forbidden area. Whoosh! Once again, under Princess Mingzhu's lead, they passed through another gate of heaven. The scenery in front of them suddenly changed. Countless towering ancient trees covered a large area. Many precious flowers, plants, and trees could be seen here with their own eyes. The entire space was filled with a natural charm. On top of those tall ancient trees, one could clearly see that there were many exquisite tree houses on the ancient trees. There were big and small tree houses, and there were elves busily going in and out of them. There were also elven children playing in the forest. Princess Mingzhu, you're back. Just at this moment, from midair, 2 bodyguards wearing light armor instantly appeared in front of Princess Mingzhu, blocking her path. While their eyes were respectfully saluting, they also quickly swept a few glances at Sakura from time to time, revealing a vigilant expression. I wonder who this is. Clearly, they were extremely suspicious of him. When Di Shirtian heard this, he let out a cold snort from his nose and directly glanced at the 2 guards. From his eyes, there seemed to be a vast and unstoppable majesty. It directly pierced into their souls. The kind of majesty was simply unstoppable. The two elven guards, whose strength had reached the peak of the ancient demon saint, screamed at the same time. Their bodies, which were originally standing in midair, suddenly fell to the ground like weights. What's wrong with my five elements' true power? Why did it disappear? Why can't I mobilize my true power? The two guards fell on the spot and smashed onto the ground, making a heavy rumbling sound. On the ground, two huge marks were formed. In the blink of an eye, their cultivations were completely sealed. Provocation. Tion would still be polite to Princess Mingzhu, but how could he ignore the two guards' vigilant gazes? Otherwise, they would really think that he was afraid of the elves. This scene fell into Princess Mingzhu's eyes, and a strange glow appeared in her eyes. She felt that Tian's strength was even more mysterious. Sir, please don't be offended. It's just that the elves have been living in seclusion and rarely have outsiders come. I'll bring you to the place where the Ancestor is. Princess Mingzhu immediately apologized softly, then said to the surrounding people, "Quickly, go and report to my mother that I'm bringing Mr. D to visit the Ancestor." With that, she led Tian to the Five Elements Sacred Tree. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 901. Quickly report to the Queen. In the forest, a few figures quickly escaped into the forest and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the eyes of Sakura, these were like clowns jumping around. He didn't care about them at all. What he believed in was the supremacy of power. No matter what kind of powerful conspiracy was in front of him, in the face of absolute power, the conspiracy was just a small trick that couldn't be put on the table. A true powerhouse had a strong heart. My heart would never change, and I firmly believed that I was the strongest. Everything in front of him could be broken through by himself. As long as his will was not destroyed, his soul would be eternal. What good elf tribe? There are so many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the tribe. There are so many hidden, powerful auras. Along the way, Tian glanced around. His will silently covered a large area of the void. Under the cover of his consciousness, he could clearly feel that in this elf space, there were elf powerhouses who had condensed their own wills and reached the ancient heavenly demon realm. The number was not small at all. There were thousands of them. He could not help but sigh secretly. Although the elf tribe lived in seclusion in the forbidden land of Heaven's Gate, the strength of the entire tribe did not decline by much. If these thousands of elf powerhouses were to go out, they would definitely be an amazing fighting force. Even the current demon clan could not produce thousands of ancient heavenly demon realm powerhouses. The elf tribe was indeed a tribe that worshipped nature. The surrounding air was filled with a rich natural aura. The flowers, plants, and trees were thriving. It was unusually comfortable. Following behind Princess Mingzhu, they walked all the way into the depths of the elf forest. Moreover, the deeper they went, the stricter the security became. However, Princess Mingzhu's identity could be said to be one of the most honorable existences in the elf tribe. Along the way, they did not encounter too many obstacles. Not long after, they had arrived in front of a lake with a radius of thousands of feet. In the lake, they could clearly see a towering ancient tree that was emitting a five-colored divine radiance. It was no less than 5,000 feet tall. The dense branches blocked a large area of the void. It could be seen that the five-color divine radiance flowing on the ancient tree was somewhat weak and dim. It exuded an aura that was strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. Drip! On the ancient tree, drops of milky white dew constantly dripped from the leaves into the lake, rippling. The lake was filled with the same sweet dew. It contained rich five elements divine power. Five elemental dew. TSK. This is five elemental dew. There's actually an entire lake of it. Heavens, in ancient times, a random gourd of five elements dew would cost tens of thousands of mixed yuan pills to buy. My goodness, there are so many lakes in one lake. If those ancient experts knew about this, they would go crazy on the spot. Dark's eyes widened as he stared at her. The five elemental dew was a top-grade holy water that could be used to concoct pills, cultivate various kinds of spiritual essence, and even improve one's physique during cultivation. If it was used to brew spirit wine, it would immediately increase the grade of the spirit wine. He had reached an unimaginable level. The Hunyuan elixir was similar to the Tianyuan elixir. In ancient times, it was a hard currency used in transactions. The Hunyuan elixir was formed by absorbing the chaotic energy from the primal chaos. It was very useful for experts. It should be known that the inner world was unable to absorb any energy from the outside world. It was a small, independent world. Therefore, the growth of the inner world had always been extremely slow and difficult. It required a lot of effort to constantly perfect it. If one had a Hunyuan elixir in hand, they could directly integrate it into the inner world to make it grow and become stronger. This was because the chaotic energy in the Hunyuan elixir was immeasurably beneficial to the growth of the inner world. Therefore, the Hunyuan elixir had always been the strongest hard currency in ancient times. However, the Hunyuan elixir could only be formed from the chaotic energy. Ordinary cultivators could never come into contact with it. Even if they did, it would be very difficult to condense it. Without special conditions, an ordinary ancient expert could only condense one Hunyuan elixir in a day. One could imagine how precious the Hunyuan elixir was. I didn't expect the five elemental dew to be formed from the dew condensed from the five elements sacred tree. The elves are really rich. Once they sell the five elemental dew, I'm afraid they won't be much worse than you. Lunatic D. Dark's eyes kept flickering with a strange light, as if he had a different view of the five elemental dew. This is the common mother of the elves, the Ancestor, the five elements sacred tree. Princess Mingzhu stood in front of the lake, exuding a pious expression as if she had seen her ancestor. She respectfully knelt down to the sacred tree in the middle of the lake and prayed. Lunatic D, there's indeed something wrong with the five elements sacred tree. Its life force is depleting at an alarming rate, as if it's being devoured by something. If we don't find a reason, the devouring speed will only get faster and faster. Dark's expression was unusually serious as he looked at the dim, five-colored radiance on the five elements sacred tree. Yes, this emperor also wants to know what it is that could make a natural spiritual root like the five elements sacred tree wither to the brink of death. Sakura similarly had a trace of intense curiosity in his heart. The purple-gold vertical mark between his brows suddenly exuded a strange charm. It quickly opened to both sides. A pair of cold, purple-gold eyes opened and stared indifferently at the boundless world. Following that, a vast pressure completely enveloped the area within a radius of 10,000 feet. What is this? The opening of the heavenly punishment divine. I immediately woke Princess Mingzhu up. Looking at the ice-cold eyes, a feeling of invincibility emerged in her heart. It was as if a lowly mortal had suddenly seen a supreme god. An irresistible thought emerged in her heart. This is the aura of the eye of heavenly punishment. Let's hurry to the five elements' divine spring. In the depths of the elven forest, there was an elven palace. In the palace, a woman who looked very similar to Princess Mingzhu, but more mature, was sitting on the elven throne. She wore a five-colored crown on her head, on which was embedded a resplendent pearl. In her hand was an exquisite and ancient elven scepter. It was embedded with a strange seven-colored crystal. It exuded a natural charm. It exuded an ancient aura. She was the elven queen of the elves. At this moment, the moment Sakura opened his heavenly punishment divine eyes, she immediately raised her head and glanced at the location of the lake. Without even thinking, she took a step forward and her entire body disappeared from the throne. Eye of heavenly punishment, delusion breaker. A purplish gold divine light instantly shot out from the eye of heavenly punishment and landed on the five elements sacred tree. Instantly, the scene of the sacred tree appeared clearly in his mind. What kind of eye technique is this? Princess Mingzhu was a little nervous when he shot out the divine light, but she could clearly feel that there was no power in the divine light that wanted to harm the primogenitor, so she didn't stop it. However, she was still secretly curious and kept thinking about it. The eye of heavenly punishment. Such a powerful eye of heavenly punishment. But he's not from the heavenly punishment tribe. He's actually a Yao. Not far away, in a hidden void, the elf queen was holding the elf scepter as she stood in mid-air. She carefully sized up Tion. With this look, she couldn't help but feel surprised. She had originally thought that the one who appeared would be the most mysterious heavenly punishment tribe expert in the legends. The Eye of Heavenly Punishment had always been owned by the Heavenly Punishment tribe, but unexpectedly, the one who owned it was a Yao. Who is he? He also has a strong sense of majesty. The Elven Queen thought to herself, but did not stop Tion from observing the 5 elements sacred tree. Good heavens, there's actually such a powerful 5 elements origin energy in his body. No wonder it's one of the most powerful innate spiritual roots in the world. However, the origin energy in this tree seems to be constantly being absorbed. Within the tree, boundless origin energy of the 5 elements continuously circulated and surged within the tree like a tide. It was as boundless as the sea. It was as if he had entered a vast ocean of 5 elements origin energy in an instant. Just a small portion of it could immediately transform into a sacred body of 5 elements. The 5 elements origin energy and life force are constantly flowing away. Tion immediately sensed that the energy in the tree was rapidly flowing toward the roots, absorbing the sacred tree's immense life force at every moment. He was no exception to this. He quickly scanned his surroundings again. In the deepest part of the ancient tree, a core space filled with 5-colored divine light appeared in front of him. In that space, a 5-colored crystal heart was suspended. The life force in the heart was constantly weakening, and every time it beat, it was abnormally slow. It seemed to be extremely weak. Whoosh! Suddenly, countless rays of light gathered in the heart. Above the heart, a woman in 5-colored divine clothes condensed and appeared in front of Tion. She exuded an ancient aura. There was an innate 5 elements flowing in her body. In an instant, it was as if he saw a divine puppet that controlled the 5 elements. You are the divine soul of the 5 elements sacred tree, the ancestor of the elven tribe. Tion directly pierced through the core space. A purple gold divine light appeared in the space, and in an instant, it condensed into Tion's appearance. He was majestic. His gaze fell on the woman. My friend, I can feel kindness and hope in you. That's right, I am the divine soul of the 5 elements sacred tree, the ancestor of the elven tribe, the sacred mother of 5 elements. The woman exuded a great and universal temperament that made people admire her, but her voice was abnormally weak. When Tion saw it, he couldn't help but feel a trace of respect. This was the ancestor of a tribe. No matter who it was, she was worthy of respect. With your innate spiritual roots, logically speaking, your lifespan is endless and indestructible. It's hard to destroy. I just checked your body. The origin and life force in your body are constantly flowing away. What's going on? Tion asked without hesitation. This was the real key. It's a curse. The sacred mother of 5 elements' face revealed a look of fear. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. I support the author, and I support the original readers. Chapter 902. Those with tickets, please help me up. Curse. Tion felt as if there were thousands of lightning bolts flashing wildly in his mind. Not only was he no stranger to curses, but he also cultivated the 7 emotions and 6 desires in the world. The power of desire could be said to be the source of all living evil and the source of countless curse techniques. There were also many curse techniques in his body that condensed into curse seals that were branded on the 11th grade Black Lotus. There were a total of 15 cursed seals. Heaven wound, soul devouring, withering glory, heaven blinding, tarsal bone, petrification, decay sluggish, blood collapse, gold transformation, divine wound, frost, heaven lock, God binding, and heaven ugliness. Every single one of them was unfathomable and possessed an extremely powerful force. Moreover, he himself was the source of all evil. Any cursed technique in the world would not have the slightest danger of backlash when cultivated. However, since the ancient times, the conjurer had completely disappeared. Even the legendary Valley of All Evil, the cursed land, had disappeared without a trace. It was an extremely thorough disappearance. Even cursed techniques had become extremely rare. They could only learn a thing or two from the ancient books left behind in the ancient times. In the end, they could restore all kinds of cursed techniques. However, they were also terrifyingly rare. Those that were passed down could be counted with one's fingers. Tion was able to gather 15 types of curse techniques and obtain 15 origin curse seals. It was very rare. It's the curse that's eroding me. A hint of fear appeared on the 5 elements' divine mother's face. Suddenly, wisps of pitch-black smoke emerged from her body and turned into small chains that wrapped around her body and directly pierced into her body. Then it bound him tightly. They pierced into her flesh. Ah, it's coming again. The 5 elements' divine mother let out a low and painful cry. The chains were like parasites that constantly devoured all the power in her body. The 5 elements' divine rings burst out of her body and were in a deadlock with the chains. However, the 5 elements' divine rings were defeated by the chains. They were constantly being eroded, and the 5-color divine radiance seemed to be unusually dim. Even on her body, mysterious runes appeared faintly and were branded all over her body. It is indeed a curse. When Tion saw the pitch-black chains, the light in his eyes seemed to be able to suppress the sun. Within the chains, he could clearly feel a strange and evil power flowing. The spell inside was something he had never seen before. I am in control of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. I am the source of all evil, the source of all curses. All curses in the world belong to me, and listen to I. Quickly return to your positions. Tion quickly cast the Book of Shocking King. The 11-tier black lotus in his body exuded a noble presence. In the space within the 5 elements sacred tree, he casually grabbed at the 5 elements sacred mother. Crash! The pitch-black chains that had been nibbling away at the divine mother of 5 elements seemed to have sensed the summons of their emperor. They stopped nibbling away and hesitantly turned towards Tion. An astonishing power of desire continuously emerged from Tion's body. Immediately, as if they had found their mother and seen their emperor, the chains happily separated from the divine mother of 5 elements. They quickly surged towards Tion's hand and drilled into his palm. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. At the same time, outside the sacred tree, within the divine light that shot out from between Tion's brows, pitch-black chains followed the divine light and drilled into his body. Before he could cover his ears, he was attracted by the 11-tier black lotus that was constantly rotating at a constant speed in the demon abode. The chains quickly drilled into the black lotus and collapsed in an instant. They turned into mysterious runes that intertwined with each other and spun along with the black lotus. From the inner world, a vast power of desire continuously poured into these runes, causing them to fuse together. In the blink of an eye, all the chains condensed into 6 complete runes. Just like the original 15 runes, they were branded on the 11-tier black lotus and completely fused together. They rotated with the black lotus. He fused his mind with the 6 new runes. Immediately, the information of the runes appeared clearly in his mind. It is indeed a curse technique. Deplete vitality, devour magic, psyche, soul lock, heart strike, plunder, blood curse. What a sinister curse technique. Deplete vitality to break the defense of the 5 elements, primordial chi. Devour magic to devour the primordial chi of heaven and earth. Psyche to cause the soul to have nowhere to hide. Heart strike to cause unbearable pain. Plunder is indeed very strange. Tion was secretly amazed. These 6 newly obtained curse techniques were completely completed and turned into his own. In total, there were 21 types of curse techniques. You can subdue the curse. As the curse chains were taken out of her body, the 5 elements' Holy Mother, who was originally in unbearable pain, immediately relaxed a lot. She looked at Sakura with a look of pleasant surprise and expectation. It was as if a ray of light had suddenly bloomed in the darkness. As expected, you are my hope. Although I can help you remove these cursed chains temporarily, I can't guarantee that I can help you. Tion did not immediately make a promise. His divine eyes quickly scanned every inch of the 5 elements' divine tree's body from top to bottom. He did not find anything strange on the main body. He only felt that the 5 elements' divine tree was abnormally weak. The life force in its body was like a candle in the wind, showing signs of extinguishing at any time. However, when he scanned the roots of the 5 elements' divine tree, the scene that he saw shocked Tion. There's a situation. What a dense black fog. It seems that the entire root is bound by the black fog. Ming exclaimed. There's indeed a problem. The roots of the divine tree are bound by this black fog. Let me see what is in this black fog. What an evil aura. Tion activated his eyesight. The purple-gold divine light instantly burst forth with endless power. The power of Delusion Breaker was unleashed to the extreme. In an instant, he saw through the black fog and saw the scene in the black fog. Countless roots were invaded and turned pitch black. In the middle of the roots, there was an item that was tightly wrapped around. A pitch-black stone coffin. Another black coffin. Tion's eyes contracted violently. He unconsciously narrowed them into slits. On the surface of the black coffin, there were numerous pitch-black mysterious symbols that carried an endless evil aura. They were densely distributed on every inch of the surface of the black coffin, and they interweaved together, emitting a profound and mysterious energy. It was as if there were pitch-black chains that tightly sealed the black coffin. At the same time, many pictures appeared. In different conjurers in black robes were chanting incantations and casting strange curses. They easily annihilated countless living beings. They fought with savage beasts and divine dragons. With a wave of their hands, all kinds of curses flew in the sky and cursed heaven and earth. It was like an epic of a conjurer. The power of a conjurer is indeed hard to predict with common sense. However, all curses and spells are just supplements to me. Looking at the epic, Tion was deeply shocked. However, in the blink of an eye, he came to his senses. He basically knew that the 5 elements divine tree was indeed corroded by the evil curse that was emitted from the black coffin. That was why its vitality was constantly being devoured. It couldn't even break free. Swoosh! The divine light that shot out from the divine eye was suddenly retracted. I wonder if Mr. can find out the reason why the primogenitor's vitality is constantly flowing away. A clear and melodious voice sounded by his ear. That voice revealed a hint of nervousness that was difficult to detect. You're the Elven Queen. Indra raised his eyes and looked to his side. That elf queen who looked extremely similar to Princess Mingzhu, wearing a crown on her head and holding a scepter in her hand, impressively appeared in front of him. On her body, there was a kind of unique temperament and majesty of being in charge of a clan. Yes, the primogenitor is the mother of our elven tribe. Ever since the primogenitor began to mutate, she has been preventing us from getting close to her. We can't find out the real reason for the mutation. We can only watch helplessly as the primogenitor weakens day by day. The Elven Queen's face was filled with sadness and bitterness. As a child, how could she not feel pain when she saw her mother suffer? She looked up at Tion seriously and said, "As long as Mr. can save the primogenitor, I'll agree to anything you ask of the Elven tribe." Tion heard sincerity in her voice. However, he still said calmly, I already have a rough idea of the cause of this matter. However, I'll have to enter the five elements divine tree personally to see if I can break the death calamity. When the elven queen heard this, her body couldn't help but tremble. A look of pleasant surprise also appeared between her brows. Just as she was about to speak, suddenly, in the distance, an astonishingly powerful aura soared into the sky and rushed over. Elven Queen, Di-Shir-Tian is an important guest of my celestial tribe. If you dare to force him to do something he doesn't want to do, my celestial tribe will fight with your elven tribe, even if we have to use the power of our entire tribe. An indiscernible voice quickly spread from afar. However, there was a supreme will that couldn't be disobeyed. In front of this will, anyone who dared to question that sentence would suffer a terrifying attack. The other party came very quickly. As soon as the voice fell, he had already appeared in front of the five elements divine tree. Beneath his feet was a snow-white, auspicious cloud. On the cloud, Tian Yin, Tian Xiao and Tian Ro were also there. However, they were standing behind a middle-aged man in a white robe with a peaceful face. This middle-aged man, although he didn't look eye-catching and didn't have the slightest bit of handsomeness, but just standing there, he had a sense of existence that couldn't be ignored. His pair of eyes seemed to be able to see through the mysteries of heaven and earth. Tian Yunzi. Seeing this, the elven queen couldn't help but narrow her eyes. She spat out a sentence from her mouth. "Mr. D, are you all right? This is the chief of our celestial tribe, Tian Yunzi. With the chief here, no matter how overbearing the elven tribe is, they won't dare to force you to do anything you don't want to do." Tian Ro looked at Di-Shir-Tian with a flushed face and hurriedly said, "To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading." Chapter 903. A new week is here again. Brothers, if you have votes, please vote a few. Recommend monthly votes and support those who have votes. So it's Senior Tian Yunzi. Thank you for coming. Di-Shir-Tian appreciates your kindness. But don't worry, the Queen of the Elves didn't force me. Di-Shir-Tian looked at Tian Yunzi and nodded slightly. There was an unusual aura in him. At the same time, there was an indelible unique will in his body. This will allowed him to exist in heaven and earth, but he seemed to be separated from heaven and earth. He was unique and seemed to be blessed by heaven and earth. This was a peerless expert. The characteristic of a peerless expert was that his will had been completely perfected. He had his own unique will. He could change heaven and earth with just a thought. However, even in front of Tian Yunzi, even though he knew his identity, he didn't bow down to him at all. Instead, he treated him as an equal. He didn't show any weakness. This answer immediately made Tian Yunzi look at Di-Shir-Tian with a strange light in his eyes. As he looked at him carefully, he couldn't help but be surprised. On Sakra's body, he felt a supreme emperor's might that only belonged to an emperor, an indescribable noble aura. His every movement had a unique temperament that was full of vigor and vigor. He couldn't help but take him seriously. I can't humiliate him. Such a thought flashed in the depths of his mind. With an easygoing smile, he said, "It's all right. Little friend, you saved Little Flame, Xiao and Ro previously. I haven't had the chance to thank you for this matter. Coming here this time is just a small matter. You don't deserve it. But don't worry. As long as I'm here, if you don't want to do something, even if the whole elf clan is in front of you, they can't force you to do it." As he spoke, he glanced casually at the Queen of the Elves. His words were full of firm belief. "Humph, Tian Yunzi, do you really think that our elf clan can't keep you here?" The Queen of the Elves raised her eyebrows, and her body was full of the majesty of a king. She was not afraid of him at all. His eyes were fixed on Tian Yunzi's face, emitting an indelible supreme will. He was about to crush Tian Yunzi. In my opinion, we should first deal with the five elements sacred tree's mutation as soon as possible. Otherwise, the life of the sacred tree will continue to fade away. Every moment will be a terrible loss for the sacred tree, Di-Shir-Tian said calmly. five elements sacred tree? The ancestor of the elves? Tion Yunzi fixed his eyes on the five elements sacred tree. With a single glance, he couldn't help but be startled. He said in astonishment, "How can the life aura of the five elements sacred tree become so weak?" Then, he suddenly realized something and said, "So the reason why you are fighting over the source of life is because of your elven progenitor." The hostility in his eyes dissipated in an instant. He finally understood why the Five Elements elf clan, who had always loved peace and revered nature, would suddenly attack his clan's land. He glanced at the elven queen with a sudden realization. Then, he carefully looked at the Five Elements sacred tree. The yin-yang twin fish imprint between his brows suddenly emitted an intense light. In the fish eyes of the twin fish imprint, a resplendent blood-red light appeared. A great omen? What on earth is in your ancestor's body? Tion Yunzi's expression changed slightly. Even he felt a great omen. It could be seen that what happened to the Five Elements sacred tree was extremely terrifying. If he really intervened, he felt that there was a terrible danger that he would die and be seriously injured. "Let me go and have a look," Tion said calmly. After that, without hesitation, he casually took a step forward. His body appeared in front of the Five Elements sacred tree without any warning. Then, he easily got into the tree and disappeared. How bold! Tion Yunzi nodded subconsciously and thought to himself, the demon clan has such an outstanding expert. Could it be that the heavenly human clan has been hiding for too long, and the outside world has changed greatly? Back then, I predicted that the demon clan would be in danger of declining. It was very likely that we would never be able to restore the glory of the ancient times. Was there a mistake in my prediction? He thought to himself, I hope he can really save our ancestor. Otherwise, our elf clan will also suffer a great disaster. The elven queen looked at the Five Elements sacred tree nervously. She prayed in her heart, Mr. D will be fine. Tian Ro, and the other two also prayed in their hearts. Chi Fu. Di Shirtian got into the sacred tree. With the help of the magic of the wood spirit orb in his body, his escape technique was no worse than Ku Rong's. With the Five Elements sacred mother's permission, he quickly shuttled through the sacred tree and got into the ground. The sacred tree was deeply rooted, and it went thousands of meters underground. In the blink of an eye, he appeared where the roots were. He got out of the roots. A ball of pitch-black fog rushed towards him. The black fog emitted an evil aura, as if it contained all the sins in the world. Just a touch of it could make people fall into madness and sin instantly. Humph! The Emperor, shocking the world, devours all the power of evil. Di Shirtian was not afraid of the evil black fog in front of him. His face exuded endless majesty, as if he was the king of all evil. In the demon mansion in his body, the 11th grade Black Lotus suddenly started to spin rapidly. As soon as the surrounding black fog got close, it was immediately pulled by the powerful devouring force of the Black Lotus into his body through the countless pores on his body. It immediately entered the Black Lotus like a swallow returning to its nest. Rumble. The black fog contained the pure power of the curse. To others, it was simply a highly toxic substance. But to Di Shirtian, it was an unprecedentedly great tonic. As soon as it entered the Black Lotus, it was quickly transformed into pure Emperor True Power and integrated into the Black Lotus. The Emperor True Power was the ancestor of the Curse Power. The Emperor True Power, which only occupied a small part of the Black Lotus, was continuously devouring the cursed black fog outside. Although the cursed black fog could not be compared to the Emperor True Power in terms of purity, it had the advantage of being huge and endless. The curse power in it could greatly strengthen the 21 curse seals in his body. After absorbing it, it could be transformed into the Emperor True Power with just a little refinement. It was no less than the all-nourishment soup. Reverse the Black Lotus, devour with all its might. The 11th grade Black Lotus suddenly reversed, spinning in a strange counterclockwise direction. With this reversal, all the Emperor's true power in his body returned to the Black Lotus. There was no remaining half-dead true power in his body, just like a vacuum. His entire body turned into a terrifying black hole. At an even more shocking speed, it began to devour the cursed black fog around him. Outside his body, it formed a strange vortex. Nourishment, it's really nourishment. I don't know how many years this cursed black fog has been accumulating. You're going to benefit from all of this, Lunatic D. Dark shouted excitedly. However, it didn't dare to touch the cursed black mist. Rumble. In the Black Lotus, waves of pure Emperor true power were constantly being refined. In the blink of an eye, it filled almost 3/10 of the space of the Black Lotus. His true power increased greatly. I don't know what's in that black coffin. Could it be a powerful cursemancer? D. Shurtion guessed in his mind as he walked quickly towards the black coffin. Cursemancers are a group of terrifying lunatics. Who knows what they're thinking? I was imprisoned in the eyes of the heavens punishment god. It must be their doing. Dark had a great prejudice against cursemancers. Whenever he spoke of them, his face would not be pleasant. According to the records, the cursemancer has disappeared without a trace. Even the Valley of All Evil has disappeared. It seems like everything related to them has been erased. This time, we actually found a black coffin that is related to them here. Maybe we can get some clues from it and find out the reason. Sakura said meaningfully. We're here. Look. Ming cried out in alarm. Not far ahead, a 30 feet long and 10 feet wide black coffin stood before him. The black coffin was covered in mysterious symbols and emitted an evil aura. The lid of the coffin was tightly shut. A black fog so thick that it seemed almost tangible covered the entire coffin. Just by looking at it from afar, an evil will rush into Sakura's mind from the black coffin. Your blood will dry up. Your eyes will lose their light. Your legs will lose the power to walk. Your arms will rot. Your heart will stop beating. Your bones will rot. Your face will fester. The words were like the curses of a fiend, and they echoed in Yang Qi's mind. At the same time, a strange power began to burrow into his body. Vaguely, his body was really starting to fulfill the curse. You want to attack I with a trifling curse? Are you blind dogs? D. Shurtion snorted coldly, and with a thought, the cursed power that had entered his body vanished. A vast, devouring power swept through him, sucking all of the cursed power into the 11th Order Black Lotus. It was refined into imperial true power. He was the root of all evil. If he were to be corroded by the cursed power, it would be the biggest joke in the world. Yang Qi looked into the black coffin. The coffin was pitch black, but strangely enough, he could see what was inside. There was no corpse or body inside the coffin, as he had expected. There were two things inside. One of them was a pitch-black scepter. At the top of the scepter, there was a tiny crystal skull. It was lifelike and contained endless curse power. Its eyes shone with an evil light. The power of the curse almost completely froze one's mind. The entire scepter was covered with mysterious veins that intertwined with each other, emanating the charm of the desires of heaven and earth. The scepter seemed to be constantly absorbing the power of desire from heaven and earth. It was incredibly evil, but also shrouded in layers of mystery. Beside the scepter, there was an ancient black jade box. From the veins on the jade box, it was obvious that, just like the scepter, it was the work of a conjurer. That's the scepter of curses. Ming merely took a glance at it, and she couldn't help but exclaim with shock. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 904. This is the cursed scepter? Could it be related to the cursemancer? Indra couldn't help but frown slightly when he heard Nether's shocked cry. All along, he'd rarely lost his composure like this. Yet he'd actually exclaimed with surprise when he saw this scepter. He acutely sensed that the scepter within this black coffin was definitely not an ordinary precious treasure. It must be related to the legendary cursemancer. The cursing scepter is a scepter that only the cursing gods can use. The The cursing gods are terrifying existences that even the strongest cultivators in the world have to avoid. Besides, each of the cursing scepters requires a lot of energy, a lot of materials, and a lot of cursing strength to make them. The skull on the scepter was only bronze in color, but now it has turned into a crystal. It's definitely a treasure that the cursing gods always carry around with them. How would it be sealed here? What's going on? Dark widened his eyes in disbelief as he looked at everything in front of him. Others might not know, but it was very clear that in this world, there were only a handful of cursed scepters that could reach the crystal skull level. The cultivation of a cursemancer was filled with danger at every step. It intersected with the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Every step forward was the line between life and death. This was the price they had to pay for mastering the curse art. In history, there were only a handful of people who could cultivate to the curse god level. In the eyes of others, every curse scepter was the most evil and terrifying evil weapon in the world. Not to mention touching it. Even looking at it could cause one to be entangled with countless curses. They would die on the spot, and even their souls would not be able to escape. Every curse scepter was the curse god's life curse weapon that would never leave his side. However, at this moment, it was placed here in the black coffin. This scene was indescribably strange. The curse god's curse weapon. Deshirtian's eyes flashed. He stared at the cursed scepter in the black coffin in a completely different light. He could feel a vast and boundless power from a scepter. Countless curses intertwined together, turning the scepter into the source of all curses. It blended together perfectly. He had already seen that the cursed black fog outside the black coffin was actually emitted from the cursed scepter. It seems that this black coffin is not simple. Sakura's heart shivered. He didn't let his guard down. Inside his body, he reversed the king's shocking world book. The massive amount of cursed black fog was sucked into his body like a tide. It turned into pure purple gold king's true power at an amazing speed. Like a whale swallowing everything, it engulfed the entire black fog. In the blink of an eye, it had devoured everything. In an instant, the space within the 11th grade Black Lotus was occupied by 40% of the Royal True Force. The cultivation power in his body had almost doubled in a way that was several times stronger. The black fog around the black coffin was completely devoured. Open! Deshirtian walked to the front of the black coffin. He extended his hand and gently stroked the surface of the black coffin, touching the ancient runes on it. With a thought, a powerful force instantly gushed out from his demonic body and pushed the lid of the black coffin in a domineering manner. He wanted to push the coffin lid open. Creak, creak. The black coffin made a soft, indescribable sound. It was as though a bronze door that had been closed for a long time was suddenly pushed open. On the black coffin, the tightly shut lid made a hoarse sound, and a small crack appeared on the coffin lid. What a heavy black coffin! Ming exclaimed in surprise. With Deshirtian's current cultivation, he had cultivated the extreme king indestructible body. His demonic body was as strong as an ancient peak heaven demon. His demonic body was so strong that it could uproot mountains and break seas. He could crush a mountain with a single finger. With a push of his palm, he could topple a 10,000 jong tall mountain. However, he only managed to push open a small crack on the black coffin. Umph! Open up! A touch of unswerving determination flashed across Sakura's face. Waves of power continuously surged into his right arm like a tide. On his entire arm, pieces of muscles continuously surged, just like a ferocious horned dragon. The majestic power was constantly applied to the coffin lid. Creak, creak, creak. The coffin lid was pushed open inch by inch. Clang! With a heavy thud, the black coffin was completely opened. In an instant, everything in the black coffin was presented before his eyes. There are 2 items in the black coffin. One is the cursed scepter, and the other is this black jade box. A black box that can be placed together with the scepter is definitely not an ordinary item. Deshirtian looked at the black jade box. On the surface of the jade box, there were countless mysterious black lines that intertwined with each other, giving off a profound charm. Each and every one of the runes contained a boundless amount of power. They were constantly changing, making it impossible for people to completely capture their traces. They were densely packed and stacked on top of each other as though they were alive. They intertwined with each other and enveloped the entire black box. J boxes had always been the first choice for storing treasures. They could store spiritual essence or dharma treasures. The black box in front of him was covered by so many mysterious runes. This was not a restriction, but an unimaginable seal. Could it be that this black box contains the treasures of a cursed deity? A thought flashed through D. Shirtian's mind. He vaguely felt an indescribable mystery from this black box. I'd like to see what's in this black box. D. Shirtian stood in front of the black coffin and stretched out his hand, about to reach for the black box. Wait, Crazy D, look at the bottom of the coffin lid. There's writing on it. Right at this moment, Nether suddenly shouted loudly in his mind. Immediately, D. Shirtian's outstretched hand stopped. He quickly looked at the coffin lid that had been opened. He saw that there was indeed an ancient writing under the coffin lid. This writing was extremely ancient. It did not seem to be any writing that he could recognize. It was not demon script, ancient seal script, or divine script. This is a curse created by a curse master. D. Shirtian understood. He had seen this type of writing when he received the legacy of the curse master. It was a mysterious curse that only a curse master could understand. With a thought, a strand of spiritual sense quickly came out of Xiao Chen's body and collided with the incantation on the coffin lid. The moment it came into contact with the incantation, information quickly entered Xiao Chen's mind through the spiritual sense. Plague deity. After Sakura got the message in his mind, his face couldn't help but change on the spot, and he couldn't help but spit out a sentence. His eyes snapped open, and he looked at the black box and said, "Seal." In an instant, countless mysterious seals appeared out of thin air. Streaks of snow white and flawless, as if they were traces of the way of the heavens, rapidly sealed the black box from all directions. Each of the sealing traces contained an unimaginable sealing power. They could seal mountains and rivers. However, there were no less than hundreds of thousands of them. Crack! However, just as these seals were about to be imprinted on the black box, the originally tightly shut black box suddenly and strangely split open a tiny crack, opening the black box by a slit. BZZ! As soon as the black box was opened, it was as if a terrifying magic box had been opened. Countless black fog spurted out from the black box. Strange buzzing sounds came from the black fog. Countless terrifying insects flew out from the black fog, each of them exuding the aura of death and disaster. They slammed into the sealing marks descending from the sky. Bam! One by one, the strange insects were suppressed by the seal mark. However, the seal mark was unable to stop the sky full of strange insects. It was almost completely destroyed on the spot. TSK, I didn't expect you to be so alert. However, you're still going to die today. In the past, that wretched Wu Butian actually used his cultivation to imprint a myriad of seals on his soul in order to suppress this god. However, how did he know about this god's ability? I am the plague god, the devil god of plagues. Even curses can't kill this god. Over the past tens of thousands of years, I still managed to erase a small crack in the seal. I didn't expect the heavens to send a conjurer who knows curse arts to me. Quick, open the box. I'll consider sparing your life. Otherwise, I'll let you be plagued with 1,000 plagues. You'll die a horrible death. From the black box, a strange voice rushed into D. Shirtian's mind. Demon god of plagues? You think you can threaten I? No matter how ferocious you were in the ancient times, you're only sealed in this box now. You want me to release you? You're dreaming. D. Shirtian's expression suddenly became unusually solemn. He stared fixedly at the black box, looking at the demonic plague mist that was spewing out from the box. Who knew how many terrifying demonic plague bugs were contained within it? The demon god of plagues, the legendary demon god of plagues, the Mad Emperor. You can't let him escape from the box. Otherwise, the entire purple gold continent and the myriad worlds will suffer a calamity. Quick, quick, quickly suppress him. He must have taken a fancy to your physique that's not afraid of curses and wants you to help him open the black box's seal. Underworld was so frightened that he almost jumped out of the underworld prison. His eyes were about to pop out as he shrieked. I know, a curse god must have used a life curse to seal him in this box. No wonder there's a cursed scepter in this black coffin. Quick, don't let a single one of these demon plague insects escape. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble. Every demon plague insect is an avatar. The demon god of plagues had almost driven him insane. Damn, Brad, you're just a puny heavenly demon. In the ancient times, this demon god could have killed countless of you. Since you don't listen, this demon god will do it myself. From the black box came another series of strange, vicious cries. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Immediately, the black cloud of calamity above the black box dispersed, turning into billions of tiny demon plague insects. All of them had different appearances. Suddenly, they madly pounced on D. Shirtion. There were so many of them that it was almost enough to make one's scalp explode. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support legal reading. Chapter 905. It's a new week. If you have a ticket, please help me. While you're reading, please take a minute or two to recommend something. Ultimate Emperor Indestructible Body. D. Shirtion stomped his foot on the ground, looking like an eternal, undying emperor. His body naturally exuded an unyielding, supreme will. When he saw the plague calamity bugs filling the sky, the divine light in his eyes was like a terrifying arrow that could pierce through the heavens and earth. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 6 indestructible divine rings emerged from his flesh at a speed visible to the naked eye, circling around his entire body. The purple gold, glassy divine rings spun as waves of astonishing indestructible will swept out from the divine rings. Ding, ding. Countless plague calamity bugs arrived in front of him in the blink of an eye, crashing into the 6 indestructible divine rings. The plague calamity bugs were abnormally strange. As soon as they arrived in front of the divine rings, the originally corporeal plague calamity bugs strangely became illusory. They wanted to use their incorporeal bodies to penetrate the indestructible divine rings' defenses and directly rush into D. Shirtion's demonic body. Even a peerless expert would secretly pale in fright if they encountered such a technique. Once they entered one's body, it would be no laughing matter. However, what was even more inconceivable was that even though the insects of calamity had entered the state of nothingness, the moment they touched the inextinguishable divine ring, they were forcibly blocked on the spot. A crisp sound of collision rang out. The inextinguishable divine ring was actually able to completely block the insects of calamity. They were simply unable to corrode the body of the inextinguishable divine ring. Boom, boom, boom. The plague calamity bugs were instantly shattered by the overbearing ultimate emperor force that burst forth from the indestructible divine rings. Strangely, the shattered plague calamity bugs were instantly devoured by the divine rings. What kind of protective divine light is this? How can it stop this god's plague calamity bugs from entering the incorporeal body? No, you have the power of desire in your body. You're not an ordinary conjurer. How dare you directly absorb the power of desire into your body? How is this possible? No, this isn't the original power of desire. You've even fused it with Emperor's Tao. How can the power of desire and Emperor's Tao be fused together? A terrifying shriek came from the black box. It was as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Even if you cultivate the power of desire, this god is not afraid of you. Since the nihility body cannot penetrate, this god will forcibly break through your divine ring. Explode for this god. Explode. Explode. The god of plague's angry roars echoed in the black coffin. Immediately, countless plague calamity insects pounced on the Sakura once more, their bodies emitting a terrifying light of calamity. As soon as they got close to the imperishable divine ring, the originally small plague calamity insects began to swell at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it expanded dozens, hundreds of times. When it reached its limit, it exploded with a loud bang. Rumble. When the plague calamity worms exploded, they released a terrifying calamity power that was terrifying. Every calamity worm's self-destruction was enough to kill an ordinary ancient sky fae. Countless bugs of calamity exploded, and the explosion of destructive power poured down on the immortal divine rings. The immortal divine rings trembled violently, and the sixth immortal divine ring collapsed. Then came the fifth, the fourth, and the third. Four divine rings instantly shattered. Extreme Emperor Imperial Seal, Tautai Seal. Sakura's hand quickly formed a seal. In a split second, one could only see his simple and unadorned ancient seal rapidly appearing outside his body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Figures of ancient Tautais emerged from these ancient seals. They burst forth with a terrifying devouring power, transforming into black holes that frantically devoured the destructive power of the calamity bug's self-destruction. So what if you're the god of plagues? Since you've been sealed by the cursed god's life forbidden spell, you'll stay obediently in this black coffin for all eternity. Ian's heart turned cold. The calamity bugs around him continued to self-destruct, and the resulting power was devoured by the Tautai seal. For a moment, they couldn't reach him. Divine Eye of Punishment. Between his eyebrows, the purple mark instantly opened to both sides, and a purple-gold eye suddenly opened. The eye was filled with an indifferent coldness, without a trace of emotion. Swoosh! A beam of purple-gold divine light shot out from the divine eye, sweeping across the calamity bugs that filled the sky. Instantly, the calamity bugs were enveloped by the purple-gold divine light at a speed visible to the naked eye, and they were immediately annihilated, turning into dust. They were completely destroyed and turned into nothingness. The calamity bugs that filled the sky were swept away in an instant. Divine Eye of Punishment. Annihilation. Divine Eye of Punishment? How could yowl like you have the heavenly punishment divine eyes? Damn it, could it be that those Cursemancer's plan really worked? The god of plagues let out a cry of disbelief. He seemed to have seen something unbelievable. Divine Eye of Punishment. Reincarnation. Tion ignored the god of plagues' cries. Another beam of purple-gold divine light shot out from the divine eye, and this time, the divine light landed directly on the black box. Countless divine lights intertwined and covered the black box, interweaving into mysterious runes. On the black box, a pitch-black imprint of the Wheel of Reincarnation was formed. The moment the imprint of the Wheel of Reincarnation was formed, it spun strangely as if it had a life of its own. It seemed to pull the entire world into the cycle of reincarnation. The calamity bugs that had spat out from the black box did not appear at all. They were immediately sucked into the Wheel of Reincarnation, and in the blink of an eye, their imprints were obliterated. They were crushed into dust by the power of reincarnation. Reincarnation? You can control the power of reincarnation? You're a monster. It's impossible for such a monster to appear in this world. The god of plagues shouted in disbelief. Crack! However, his shouts were muffled by the sound of the black box closing, unable to spread out in the slightest. The thin slit that appeared on the black box was closed on the spot. I command, poison, the 5 elements of heaven and earth, ice, lightning, space, all become seals, seal the demonic box. Sakura closed the black box again, but he didn't relax. He spat out word by word, and every word seemed to carry the supreme power of commanding the rules of heaven and earth, able to connect and command the power of heaven and earth. He seemed to be the ruler of the entire world, commanding all the rules. Every word and action carried the supreme power, and a word could become the law of heaven and earth. This was not a request, but a forceful command. As soon as the words left his mouth, one could clearly see countless poisons in the surroundings rapidly converging, transforming into a poisonous seal that branded itself onto the black box. The 5 elements of heaven and earth intertwined, transforming into a seal of the 5 elements that branded itself onto the box. At the same time, wind, ice, and lightning all transformed into seals. Following D. Shurtian's command, they sealed the black box tightly, without leaving a single gap. Phew! Seeing that the black box was sealed again, Dark, who was in the nether prison, heaved a heavy sigh of relief and cried out. Fortunately, the god of plagues did not completely break free from the life-forbidden spell cast by the curse god. He only broke a small crack on the seal. Otherwise, if the real body of the god of plagues escaped, I'm afraid we would all die here. I'm sure that the power that the god of plagues showed just now was not even a billionth of his peak. Legend has it that wherever he went, plagues would run rampant, and even the ancient heavenly demons would fall in large numbers. He's simply a ferocious god of plagues. Its eyes were filled with lingering fear. This black coffin should also be his sealing treasure. Otherwise, how could the god of plagues, who could break the life-forbidden spell on the black box, not be able to escape? He could only use the cursed scepter to stir up trouble. D. Shurtian looked at the black box and the cursed scepter in the black coffin. In the blink of an eye, he guessed the god of plagues' means and purpose. The god of plagues was sealed in the black box. With the life-forbidden spell seal, he could not break the seal in a short time. With the seal of the black coffin, although he could release plagues and calamities, he could not escape from the black coffin. However, the god of plagues was indeed powerful. He could use the cursed scepter to release the power of the curse. Relying on the connection between the cursed scepter and the origin of the black coffin, the power of the curse spread out of the black coffin and eroded the 5 elements sacred trees' almost endless life force. With the help of the majestic life force, he wanted to break the seal on the black coffin. He wanted to destroy the power of the black coffin. Break the seal on the black coffin. With the endless life force of the 5 elements sacred trees' innate spiritual root, there was almost a 90% chance that it could break the seal. In fact, 90% of the seal on the black coffin had been destroyed by this method. Otherwise, even if D. Shurtian was the source of all evil, it would still be difficult for him to open the black coffin easily. However, he did not expect that all his plans would be destroyed with the arrival of D. Shurtian. If it were someone else, the god of plagues might have been able to escape immediately. However, it was D. Shurtian, the one and only monster in the world, who came. Not only was he not afraid of the plague, he even sealed it in the black box again. The message left on the black coffin says that the cursed scepter can open the path to the valley of all evil. This black coffin will only be a disaster if it stays here. D. Shurtian thought to himself for a while. With a thought, he sent the black coffin directly into his inner world. Then, he used the Book of the King's shocking world to wash the roots, which had been corroded by the cursed power, clean them all. He turned around and returned to the surface. Before he left, he used his divine thought to quickly scan every inch of the surrounding area. He was afraid that he would miss anything. After confirming that there was nothing else, he left. After a long while, at the original location of the black coffin, a strange golden worm suddenly emerged little by little from the void. The eyes of this strange worm were staring at the direction where Sakura had left. Its eyes were actually emitting a substantial expression. It was a kind of inexplicable expression of astonishment, hatred, anger, shame, indignation, unwillingness, and so on. All kinds of emotions were intertwined together. Then, it quickly turned into nothingness and disappeared into thin air. Whoosh! At the same time, a dark figure appeared at the location of the black coffin again. What a strange god of plagues. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 906. Vote for me if you have any votes. What a brilliant move. Attacking you with the plague and calamity insects earlier was probably just a pretense. He had already hidden a doppelganger in the dark, waiting for you to seal his true body again and lower your guard so that he could escape in one fell swoop. Damn it, Lunatic D, you have already used the eye of heavenly punishment 3 times today. Otherwise, you might have been able to find his doppelganger. Ming looked around and found that there was no longer any aura in the surroundings. He couldn't help but say angrily. There was an inexplicable worry in his voice. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. If I miss today, I might not really be afraid of him in the future. Tion stood where the black coffin originally stood and said after a moment of silence. Even though he did not witness it with his own eyes, he felt an indescribable feeling when he used his divine thoughts to scan the surroundings. He scanned the surroundings but did not discover anything. Just as he was about to leave, he was worried and turned back again. That initial feeling disappeared all of a sudden. He guessed in his heart that the god of plague's doppelganger had probably escaped. Lunatic D, you don't have to think too much about it. The god of plagues is an expert who stands at the pinnacle of the demon god continent. His strength is so great that even unparalleled experts would find it difficult to fight him alone. Even a curse god level conjurer could not kill him and had to sacrifice his life to cast a life-forbidden spell to seal him. Even so, a trace of the seal was still destroyed. For such an expert to escape with a trace of his doppelganger, it is understandable that you would not be able to stop it with your current cultivation. Ming was afraid that Tion would go into a dead end and hurriedly comforted him. Even if his doppelganger escapes, I will destroy his real body. Tion said meaningfully. It's time to see the 5 elements Divine Mother again. After he finished speaking, his figure flashed and entered the 5 elements sacred tree. He arrived at the core space of the sacred tree and saw the huge 5-colored heart again. The originally dim 5 elements divine heart gradually regained its vitality. The beating of the heart gradually became stronger and stronger. Countless roots were constantly absorbing the power of heaven and earth to strengthen its vitality. As soon as the 5 elements sacred tree broke free from the erosion of the curse, it immediately began to recover. Thank you, little friend, for helping me get rid of thousands of years of bad luck. The 5 elements heart flashed, and the 5 elements Holy Mother appeared again. On her body, the countless cursed chains that were originally wrapped around her body had completely disappeared. A natural charm appeared on her face. She revealed a relaxed and comfortable expression. When she saw Tion, she quickly bowed. This time, Tion had helped her break free from the curse. His kindness was simply too great. It was a true life-saving grace. Otherwise, it wouldn't be long before her life force would be completely devoured. Don't worry about it. It's just that I happen to have the ability to restrain the curse. It's not a big deal, so there's no need to worry too much about it. Indra nodded calmly and said, The source of the curse has already been collected by me, and it won't appear again in the future. However, in my opinion, you have suffered from the corrosion of the curse for thousands of years, and the vitality in your body is on the verge of drying up. I'm afraid it has already damaged your foundation. He had long been clear about the 5 elements sacred tree situation. When he said it, he hit the nail on the head. You are indeed unparalleled, fellow Taoist. The 5 elements Saint Mother's face turned gloomy. She said, The corrosion of the curse. Although I look better now, my body has suffered irreparable damage during the process of corrosion. Without a special treasure, even if I recover, I am afraid that I will be much weaker than before. After being robbed of her origin and vitality, even a natural spiritual root would suffer irreparable damage. The 5 elements sacred fruit that could bear one 5 elements sacred fruit every 1,000 years might not be able to bear another sacred fruit in the next 3 or 4,000 years. There might even be a possibility of a calamity. Lunatic D, your chance has come. Nether sat on the wheel of reincarnation, his eyes wide open. Tion smiled calmly and suddenly said, I wonder if you have any plans to move to another place. Move away from here? The five elements' Holy Mother looked at Di Shirtion in shock. She said, "Fellow Taoist, you should know that as a natural spiritual root, I have very strict requirements for the environment I grow in. This is the land of the five elements, the most suitable place for me to take root. Moreover, this is the forbidden land of Heaven's Gate, so I can avoid external disturbances." She was a five-element sacred tree, so she needed a large amount of five elements power to grow. Only a land of the five elements could be suitable for her growth and nourishment. Otherwise, if she took root in ordinary land, it would not be the earth nourishing her, but her returning the five elements' source to the earth. In her current situation, she could not bear it at all. Di Shirtion stared into the five elements' Holy Mother's eyes and said softly, "Living soil of the nine heavens." What? The five elements' Holy Mother's face changed dramatically. Her pair of beautiful eyes flashed with countless colors, revealing a look of expectation and desire. She quickly exclaimed, "Do you know where to find the living soil of the nine heavens?" "To be honest, I am the demon king of the demon race, Di Shirtion. I have the supreme artifact demon city, and there is 100 herb garden made by the living soil of the nine heavens." Di Shirtion said leisurely. He talked with the Holy Mother in the five elements sacred tree for a few minutes. Then, he came out of the sacred tree. Abducting the five elements sacred tree is equivalent to abducting the entire five elements fairy race. This time, I made a big profit. Underworld was in the underworld prison, smiling from ear to ear. He came out of the sacred tree and returned to the five elements spring. "Mr. D, are you okay?" Heavenly and the other two saw Di Shirtion come out in one piece, so they breathed a sigh of relief and quickly asked, "Mr. D, how is the Ancestor?" At this moment, the elf queen asked anxiously, without any of the calmness of a peerless expert. "The Holy Mother of the five elements asks you to come over. We have something to discuss." Di Shirtion showed a smile, nodded, and said to the elf queen, "Excuse me." When the elf queen heard this, a hint of joy flashed between her brows. After saying this to Di Shirtion in a friendly manner, she quickly went into the five elements sacred tree. Obviously, she was anxious to know the specific situation of the sacred tree. "Little friend, you have good means." Tian Yunzi's pair of eyes fell on Di Shirtion and said meaningfully, "This time, little friend can save the five elements sacred tree, which is a great favor to the Celestial Clan. As long as little friend comes in the future, the Celestial Clan will receive you with the etiquette of a distinguished guest. As long as there is a need, as long as it is within our ability, we will not refuse. With little friend's cultivation, you rashly entered the forbidden area of Heaven's Gate. I don't know what is the reason. Tell us, and perhaps the Celestial Clan can help." As a peerless powerhouse, he was very experienced. At a glance, he could tell that Di Shirtion's identity was not simple. His purpose in coming to the forbidden area of Heaven's Gate was even more complicated. However, this time, he had indirectly resolved a fierce battle between the Celestial Clan and the Elf Clan. If the sacred tree was not cured, the Elf Clan would definitely rob it at all costs in order to obtain more source of life. At that time, if the two clans fought, who knew how many casualties there would be? Perhaps they would suffer a heavy blow and completely decline. However, Di Shirtion's action had inadvertently resolved a great calamity. This favor was on the surface. Even Tian Yunzi wouldn't deny it. For heavenly gates, Di Shirtion's eyes lit up. He did not show any fear in the face of Tian Yunzi's question. Instead, he calmly said, "What?" Tian Yunzi's originally calm eyes suddenly burst out with a terrifying light. A monstrous will suddenly crushed toward Di Shirtion. In an instant, it was as if the whole world had turned upside down. The sky was falling and the earth was sinking. That will almost suffocated people on the spot. The way of the emperor is to dominate the world, control everything, step on the four poles, and control the sun and the moon. If the heart is like the emperor, it will not be frightened, even if the sky collapses. The way of the emperor is to have a constant heart. In Di Shutian's mind, the Emperor Tyrant Heart Sutra flashed wildly. Every word was like a pearl or the sound of the great Tao. In his mind, he visualized himself as a peerless emperor. With a thought, he could destroy the world. Even if the world collapsed, his heart would not move, and his soul would not die. The Supreme Emperor will in his body suddenly burst out. In an instant, his whole body seemed to become incomparably tall and big. He was like a towering giant. The two wills collided. Rumble. In the void, the space was distorted, and a terrible vortex appeared. In the sky, dark clouds emerged out of thin air. Countless lightning flashed, and a terrible change appeared. However, the two wills only collided for a moment before they immediately withdrew into their bodies. The will of the Emperor. You are the Demon Emperor of the Demon Clan. Tian Yunzi withdrew his will and returned to his peaceful appearance, as if he had never made a move. It was just a simple probing, but it had imperceptibly raised the importance he attached to Sakura by who knows how many levels. The Celestial Clan was good at divination, so they had long known about the outside world. Naturally, they knew about the appearance of a new Demon Emperor. The moment they sensed the will of the Emperor, they confirmed his identity. What a terrifying will! Tian Yin, Princess Mingzhu, and the other two turned pale. In the collision of wills just now, they only felt that the world was about to collapse. A sense of powerlessness made them involuntarily feel fear. This is the will of the strong that Mother talked about, the key to becoming a peerless expert. It is the symbol of the strongest among the ancient giants. Princess Mingzhu's mind quickly turned. Demon Emperor, are you here to take away the 4 gates of heaven? Tian Yunzi said in a serious tone. That's right. At this moment, Di Shutian did not need to hide or deny. If you want to see the 4 gates of heaven, I can take you there. However, whether you can move them or not depends on your own ability. If you can succeed, Tian Yunzi will shamelessly ask the Demon Emperor to leave a place for our Celestial Clan in the Demon City. Tian Yunzi seemed to be implying something else. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com and read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 907. I'm about to reach the 900th chapter. Sigh. I'm a little emotional. This has already exceeded my previous limit. What? Mr. D is the Demon Emperor of the monster race? Demon Emperor of the monster race? I heard from my mother that the monster race suffered a great disaster in ancient times. Their status was stolen by the human race, and they were wantonly suppressed. But now, it seems that the situation in the outside world has changed greatly. The Demon Emperor has a noble status. He actually came to the forbidden area of the Gate of Heaven for the 4 gates of heaven. The gates of heaven have been standing for hundreds of millions of years, and no one has ever been able to take them away. It is said that the celestial race and the elf race entered the forbidden area and reached an agreement with the spirit of the Gate of Heaven to guard the entire forbidden area in exchange for the right to live in the forbidden area. Hearing the conversation between Di Shutian and Tian Yunzi, Heavenly, Princess Mingzhu, and the others all showed a surprised expression and secretly murmured in their hearts. The 4 gates of heaven, for them, couldn't be more familiar. The celestial race and the elf race were the guardian races of the Gate of Heaven. Naturally, they knew that the entire forbidden area relied on the 4 gates of heaven. Once the 4 gates of heaven were taken away, the power of the so-called forbidden area would immediately be greatly reduced and dissipated by more than half. The celestial race and the elf race lived in seclusion here, relying on the forbidden area of the Gate of Heaven as a barrier. Once the forbidden area was no longer there, the purpose of their seclusion would immediately disappear. This was a matter of vital interest to the 2 races. The most important thing was that the Gate of Heaven was not easy to take away. Countless powerhouses wanted to see it, but it was as difficult as ascending to the sky. This was a top innate spirit treasure that had really existed for countless years, and it had nurtured the existence of an innate spirit treasure. It was a supreme treasure with its own consciousness. I also agree. At this moment, the peerlessly beautiful elf queen had already walked out of the holy tree. The expression on her face was a little strange, and the way she looked at Tion was particularly different. On the surface, there was no trace of arrogance. She said in a delicate voice, "However, although we are the guardian races of the gate of heaven, we can only take you to the temple of heaven. As for the rest, it's all up to you." Then he turned to look at Tian Yunzi and said, "Tian Yunzi, I had no choice but to offend you on behalf of the primogeniture. Our fairy tribe can't do anything about Tian Mingzi's heavenly human decay. However, this five-elemental divine wood is a gift from our patriarch to the heavenly human tribe." The elf queen said with an apologetic look in her eyes. Then a psychic jade box slowly flew toward Tian Yunzi, which contained a section of 5 elements divine wood. This was a truly supreme treasure. Just by looking at the 5-elemental devil breaker bow, one could tell how precious it was. Seeing this, Tian Yunzi's eyes lit up, and he put the jade box into his sleeve. The heavenly human tribe and the fairy tribe were both guardian tribes and had no grudges against each other. If it wasn't for the 5 elements sacred tree, the previous incident wouldn't have happened. Seeing that the elven queen had somewhat resolved the karma, he naturally would not make things too difficult for her. Most importantly, the compensation from the 5 elements divine wood was something that even an unparalleled expert would be tempted by. "Do you plan to go now, or some other time?" Tian Yunzi looked at Tian and asked. "Of course, the sooner the better." Tian didn't hesitate at all. The ultimate goal of this trip was to find the 4 directions heavenly gates. Originally, there were 49 gates in total, and each gate contained countless disasters. There was a chance that one might really die in there. Now, with the help of the 2 guardian tribes, the heavenly human tribe and the fairy tribe, he could rely on the heavenly human tribe's powerful ability to seek luck and avoid disaster. It was simply a ladder to the 4 directions heavenly gates. If he missed it, he would really miss out on a great opportunity. How could he miss out on such a good opportunity? Moreover, he was also worried that there would be unforeseen events at the heaven-reaching tower. The celestial emperor's chariot was just a distraction. Once they realized that he wasn't inside, there might be other forces secretly plotting something. What kind of tricks would they play? The 4 directions heavenly gates were important, but so was the demon summoning banner. The Rock Demon King once said that there is a guardian guarding the Tian Peng mystic realm. I wonder which expert of the demon tribe it is. A thought quickly flashed through his mind. Well, let's go to the 4 directions heavenly gates. Tian Yunzi and the fairy queen looked at each other, nodded, and said in unison. Without much hesitation, Tian Yin and the others stayed in the fairy tribe's territory, while Tian Yunzi, the fairy queen, and Tian quickly shuttled through the heavenly gates. With Tian Yunzi's ability, his ability to seek luck and avoid disaster had reached a superb level. Shuttling quickly through the heavenly gates, they didn't enter the so-called danger zone even once. Step by step, they quickly stepped into the heavenly gates. Lunatic D, the 4 directions heavenly gates are top innate spirit treasures. They have existed for countless years, and the innate spirit treasure has been born in them. The intelligence of the spirit treasure is absolutely not inferior to anyone. With their identity, even a peerless expert can't make them willingly follow you. What method do you have to persuade them? Dark finally couldn't help but ask while heading to the 4 directions heavenly gates. As top innate spirit treasures, each heavenly gate was able to suppress a peerless expert. Its power was absolutely not weaker than the gate of myriad tribulations in the cave of myriad tribulations. They must have their own pride. Even a peerless expert couldn't subdue them. With Tian's current strength as an ancient heavenly demon, the hope was probably even slimmer. But Tian came with full confidence. It was full of doubts and couldn't get rid of them. Let me ask you, As an innate spirit treasure, what do you desire the most? Tian smiled faintly and suddenly asked, what do you desire the most? These words immediately caused Ming to be slightly stunned. During the ancient times, it was the artifact spirit of the Nether Scripture. The Nether Scripture itself wasn't a natural spirit treasure that was born from within the chaos, and it was refined by the Nether Emperor by fusing a natural spirit embryo with countless spirit materials. Since its birth, it had been in charge of the 18 layers of hell in the Book of Death. Torturing the experts who were detained in the hell every day was its favorite thing. If there were no accidents, it would rather live a life of torturing criminals forever. What did an innate spirit treasure really want and desire? It was really confused. For a moment, it couldn't help but fall into deep thought. When Tian saw it, he smiled mysteriously, but his eyes were filled with incomparable determination. This time, I must obtain the 4 directions heavenly gates. Otherwise, my demon city will never be able to be truly powerful and as stable as a rock. Only the true 4 directions heavenly gates are worthy of guarding the supreme demon court. No matter the price, he had to obtain the 4 directions heavenly gates, with Tian Yunzi and the Elven Queen leading the way. The journey was smooth and unobstructed. Although it took a certain amount of time to travel through the heavenly gates, this amount of time was only in the blink of an eye, so it wasn't surprising. Not long after, they passed through countless heavenly gates. Finally, they appeared at the location of the 49th heavenly gate. The heavenly gate was in the shape of an inverted pyramid. The further down they went, the smaller the area of the heavenly gate. The number of heavenly gates that appeared would also decrease. However, the dangers that existed in the heavenly gates would become even more powerful and terrifying. This is the 49th heavenly gate. Tian stopped and glanced around. There were no longer countless heavenly gates in front of him. Instead, there were only 4 ancient heavenly gates standing in the 4 directions, sealing off the 4 poles. The other areas were filled with chaos and darkness. There was nothing there at all. Clearly, the only things that were placed in front of him were the 4 heavenly gates outside his body. That's right. These 4 heavenly gates are the last heavenly gate, and they are also the most dangerous. Tian Yunzi nodded and replied, only one of the 4 heavenly gates leads to the 4 directions divine palace, while the other 3 lead to the most terrifying and dangerous places. Once involved, even peerless experts will die in there. Those who come here rashly and don't have monstrous luck will probably die here, the Elven Queen said with a somewhat serious expression. The entire 49th heavenly gate was a choice of one of the heavenly gates. 3 of it was death, and 1 of it was life. It was absolutely dangerous and terrifying. However, with Tian Yunzi and the others around, Tian naturally didn't have to face such a difficult choice. Let's go. Tian Yunzi glanced around and led the way into the southern heavenly gate. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. The Elven Queen followed behind, and Tian didn't hesitate either. Suddenly, the scene in front of him changed. He appeared in an inexplicable space. What a strange space. I can't absorb any of the vital energy of heaven and earth here. Even the power of desire and all other powers are prohibited. As soon as he entered the space, his senses of the surroundings immediately appeared in his mind. The moment the teleportation power around him dissipated, he immediately opened his eyes and scanned the surroundings. What appeared in front of him was a vast and boundless void. There was nothing in this space, not even the vital energy of heaven and earth. It was like a dead and empty land. Here, every bit of energy consumed couldn't be replenished by the vital energy of the outside world. Every bit of energy consumed was really consumed. It was as if he was breaking through the barrier between an ancient giant and a peerless expert. And in this void, there was a huge and ancient temple standing tall. There was nothing superfluous on the divine palace. It looked just like an ordinary palace, but there were traces of the heavenly Tao on it. There was no trace of extravagance. It was just a kind of restoration. That said, the gate in the shrine appeared to be extremely ancient and mysterious. It was tightly shut. Monster King. This is the Four Directions Divine Palace. The seniors of the Four Directions Heavenly Gate are in the Divine Palace. However, if you want to see them, you have to open the door with your own strength. Otherwise, you have to leave by yourself. Tian Yunzi looked at the Divine Palace in front of him. After bowing slightly to the Divine Palace, he opened his mouth and said, "Once you enter the Divine Palace, don't provoke them. Otherwise, even we can't save you. Once you are exiled, no one can find you." The Elven Queen also cautioned him seriously. "Thank you," Disher Tian said and walked toward the Divine Palace. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. I support the author and the original reading. Chapter 908. Next target 1,000 chapters. The four cardinal heavenly gates, am here. Standing in front of the ancient and mysterious temple, Lu Cheng looked at the ancient stone door in front of him. There was no trace of Axe Chi on the stone door. Instead, there were traces that seemed to have been imprinted on it by the passage of time. Although they were messy, they intertwined with each other and exuded a mysterious power. It was as if there was an unprecedented heavenly demon standing in front of him. Lu Cheng could feel the majestic chi coming from the stone door. What a great four cardinal heavenly palace. Even the stone door has such a terrifying chi. Disher Tian praised in his heart. My goodness, this is indeed the place where the four cardinal heavenly gates live. If one's cultivation base and state of mind were slightly weaker, they would be suppressed by the majestic chi just by standing in front of the stone door. They wouldn't even be able to get up. Dark stared at the four cardinal heavenly palace without blinking. He also knew that whether he could get the four cardinal heavenly gates would depend on today. He could easily pass through the forbidden lands of the heavenly gates with the help of Tian Yunzi and the others. However, he could only enter the four cardinal heavenly palace with his own strength. Bang! Disher Tian reached out his right hand and placed it on the stone door. When he touched it, he naturally felt an incomparably heavy coldness. It was as if it was the heaviest and hardest divine metal in the world. It was cold and emotionless, but it was as steady as Mount Tai. Open it for I. With a thought, the vast power of blood and flesh in Sakura's body surged into his right arm like a tide. On his originally well-proportioned arm, the muscles surged crazily like a dragon. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a wave of energy and poured onto the stone door. With this push, the 10,000 feet tall mountain peak was about to be pushed down on the spot. Boom! Boom! Wave after wave of force bombarded the stone door. The entire stone door emitted waves of ancient rumbling sounds. Faintly, it trembled continuously. However, the frightening thing was that the stone door remained tightly shut. There were no signs of it being pushed open at all. So heavy. Dark was secretly shocked. Oomph. Ultimate Emperor indestructible body, Ultimate Emperor creation palm, heaven raising hand. Open it for I. In an instant, Sakura raised his eyebrows and emitted an irresistible emperor's aura. At the back of his head, his black hair instantly broke free from the bondage of the headband and wantonly fluttered behind his head, making him look even more insolent. It's just a door. Do you think Disher Tian can't open it? Boom! Boom! With a thought, Xiaoqin no longer held anything back. He activated the immortal emperor body, and many undying divine rings appeared in his body at a speed visible to the naked eye. 6 dazzling, glass-like god rings spun around the curse god. As they spun, the space around them showed signs of twisting. They quickly converged into his right arm. All of a sudden, his entire right arm seemed to have 6 divine halos. From the divine ring, a vast and mighty power surged out. The power in his entire right arm instantly increased by 100-fold. At the same time, a supreme will that seemed capable of holding up the sky burst forth from his hand. With this will, even if the heavens were to crush him, this arm would be able to lift him up. Power, this was the pinnacle of power. Clang, clang, clang. The vast and mighty power poured onto the stone door at the same time. This power could almost change the heaven and earth. Even the stone door, which had been tightly closed, could not help but tremble violently. With a heavy sound, it slowly pushed open the temple. At the same time, when the stone door was pushed open, a dazzling divine brilliance blossomed from the shrine, emitting a powerful, devouring power. It wrapped around the Sakura and sucked him into the shrine. Clang! The moment Di Shurtian entered the temple, the stone door closed again. Tian Yunzi, you're good at deducing heaven's secrets. Do you think the Demon Emperor can be recognized by the 4 cardinal gates and obtain the gate of heaven? After seeing Di Shurtian enter the temple, the Elf Queen could not help but ask. No one can control the Demon Emperor's fate except for himself. Tian Yunzi said in a meaningful tone. What? A hint of surprise flashed across the Elf Queen's eyes. She looked at Tian Yunzi seriously and found that he was not joking at all. She could not help but think to herself, no wonder. With her cultivation, she naturally understood the meaning of Tian Yunzi's words. It should be noted that even a peerless expert, who had broken free from the shackles of heaven and earth, could not completely break free from the shackles of the river of fate. Although it was very difficult to be stopped by external forces, it could still be traced. When the heaven's secrets were divined, they were still in the river of fate. It cannot be completely blocked. For a long time, only an immortal dominator could completely break free from the river of fate. He could no longer be controlled by any force. However, Tian Yunzi said that no one could control Di Shurtian's fate. This was no doubt equivalent to saying that even in the long river of fate, Di Shurtian's fate was still undetectable and uncontrollable. In antiquity times, this situation was called stealing heaven's secrets. One's fate was controlled by oneself. How much one could achieve in the future depended entirely on one's heart. Every stealing heaven's secrets person, as long as he or she did not die, was a peerless genius with limitless achievements. They had the hope of becoming a dominator. No wonder Tian Yunzi said that he wanted the monster emperor to leave a place in the demon city. It turned out that he thought highly of the monster emperor's future achievements. The elven queen understood tacitly. She began to ponder in her heart. She recalled the conversation between the 5-element saintess and silently sank into contemplation. Bang! At this moment, Di Shurtian entered the temple with a dull sound of the door closing. He glanced around the temple. There was nothing superfluous in the temple. There were no exquisite carvings or majestic pillars. There was only an altar suspended in midair. On the altar, 4 ancient gates of heaven stood quietly. Each of them seemed to contain the ancient aura and traces of time. Countless mysterious runes intertwined on the gates of heaven. They did not move at all. They just stood there as if there were only the 4 ancient gates of heaven in the whole world. There was a mighty force in the gates of heaven that could intimidate one's divine soul. They were full of endless majesty. One look at them could shatter one's mind. The invisible pressure almost filled every inch of the temple, making people not dare to take half a step forward. It was not inferior to the gate of all tribulations that he saw in the past. In fact, it was even more ancient. A white jade staircase extended down from midair, directly connecting to the front of the altar. There were 49 steps on the stairway, and the distance between each step seemed to be as great as the distance between heaven and earth. There were ancient runes intertwined with mysterious colors on the stairway. It was like a stairway to heaven that led to the ancient heaven. It's you who wants to see us. Then come up from this stairway to heaven. You can't pass. Get out of the temple. 4 voices reverberated from the altar. They entered Di Shurtian's ears. Test. It was an undisguised test. It was the consciousness of the 4 gates of heaven. It clearly indicated that if one could not walk up the stairway to heaven, one was not qualified to see them and talk to them at all. If one did not even have the ability to walk up to them, how could they treat him differently? Okay, not only will I walk up the stairway to heaven, but I will definitely walk up to you. Di Shurtian's black robe fluttered without wind. A strong belief burst out from his body. His belief was unshakable. His eyes emitted a dazzling divine light, and even the darkness couldn't conceal it. No matter how terrifying the stairway to heaven in front of him was. How could he shrink back? No matter how difficult it was in the past, Tion, had never taken half a step back. Even if the heavens were in front of me, I would punch a hole in the heavens with one punch. The heart of an emperor was fearless. The heart of man was never retreating. No matter what, Tion never lacked trust in himself and unwavering belief in himself. Bang, bang, bang. Without hesitation, step by step, he steadily stepped onto the stairway to heaven. He landed on the main hall with a heavy rumble, as if the entire hall was shaking under his feet. Bang! His right foot stepped onto the first step of the stairway. In a split second, the scenery in front of him suddenly changed. In a single step, he appeared in front of a cliff. His entire body was falling down the cliff at a rapid speed. At the same time, the royal true force in his body, and even the power of the flesh and blood in his demonic body, were all strangely sealed. His entire body suddenly transformed into that of an ordinary person in the mortal world. Without the ability to fly, without the powerful strength to split the sky, the power in his body was equivalent to that of an ordinary strong man in the secular world. Moreover, his whole body appeared in midair at the edge of the cliff, falling straight down. Once he fell, he would probably be smashed into meat paste on the spot. Not even a trace of him would be left behind. Not good. Your strength, your physical body, your cultivation, why are they all suddenly sealed? Every step, every scene. This is the most realistic illusion. This is a test. Once you die, you may really fall. Quick, grab the vines. Nether hurriedly shouted. Bang! Although the tyrannical power in Tian's body disappeared, his vision and indomitable mind could not be sealed. He quickly glanced around and saw an old vine that was thicker than his arm. Without thinking, he quickly reached out and grabbed the old vine. Suddenly, the falling momentum stopped. Then, a force of inertia smashed his body heavily against the stone wall of the cliff. There was a muffled groan from his nose. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked up. He saw that he was at least 3,000 feet away from the top of the cliff. Tion, am a black tiger in the secular world's forest. I have been fighting with the heavens, the earth, and people to get to where I am today. Even if my cultivation and power are all sealed, don't think of defeating me. Even if I have no power, even if I am an ant, I can still climb up. Tian's eyes were firm as he shouted loudly. He reached out and climbed up the old vine. Climb, climb, climb. I want to climb to the top. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 909. Any expert would rather lose their life than choose to lose their power. Losing the power that was above all living beings, power was everything. If he lost his power, he would fall from being a high and mighty expert, an immortal in the eyes of the secular world, to a mortal. He would become an ant-like existence in the eyes of the people. Such a strong contrast was enough to drive an expert crazy on the spot. Even the most powerful expert would have terrible thoughts when faced with such a situation. Who knew how many inner demons would breed in their hearts? Who knows, he might even kill himself. Tion was also an expert who stood at the peak of the world. His strength was sealed, and he was transformed into an ordinary person. Such a contrast was not unheard of. However, the moment it appeared, it was immediately suppressed by his unwavering will and completely destroyed. So what if I don't have strength? I'm still me. I'm Sakura. Not to mention being sealed, even if I really lost it, I can still cultivate it back. Even if I'm smashed to pieces, my heart is not afraid, unyielding, and fearless. No one can destroy me. Ordinary people can't climb up a cliff of 3,000 feet. but I can definitely climb up. Ian's faith burned like a fire. He created the Huangji Shocking Book and rose from humble beginnings. He had spent his life in constant battles. He knew that as long as the heart was there, the soul was there. As long as the heart was not disturbed, the spirit would be clear. If the heart is not afraid, even the heavens cannot stop me. I don't have strength, but I have the heart. I'll climb. Tian looked up at the top of the cliff, his eyes shining like fire. He reached out and climbed up along the ancient vines. His two arms supported the weight of his entire body. Such a burden was an indescribable torment for his current body. Beads of sweat constantly seeped out from his forehead. Crazy D, hold on. This is a scene with every step. Your strength has been completely sealed by the four directions' heavenly gates. This test is not a test of your cultivation, but a test of your will, a test of your mind. Although this test is dangerous, it is the best time to temper one's will. Once you endure it, your willpower will undergo an unimaginable transformation. Willpower. The advancement of an ancient sky fae was the condensation of willpower. The strength of an ancient fae god was the strength of one's willpower. At the level of an ancient sky fae, one's will determines everything. Nether shouted loudly. Among the ancient giants, the most important factor that determined a person's strength was will. If an ancient giant who had condensed his own will fought against an ancient giant who hadn't condensed his own will, there was no need to think too much. The winner would definitely be the former. If he didn't cultivate his willpower, it would all be for naught in the end. Back in the fringe, Tian had said that the demon god's minions were merely bait and cannon fodder sent out by the demon god. Although they were all overlords of the fringe, none of them had condensed their consciousness. Similarly, Tian had taken the most orthodox path of Fae cultivation. The key to breaking through from the early Sky Fae to the middle Sky Fae was to condense his own willpower. Once it was condensed, breaking through to the middle Sky Fae was a simple matter. Using spiritual essence, various elixirs, and spiritual wine, one could forcefully accumulate true force. Originally, Tian had planned to travel alone to temper his willpower after he was done with various matters. But now, it was an excellent opportunity. This was a trial, but it was also an opportunity. Climb up. I want to climb to the top. Tian shouted loudly in his heart. His hands alternated as he climbed upwards. Green veins popped out on his arms. Sweat crazily gushed out from the pores of his entire body like rain. Every inch he climbed required a large amount of physical strength. Every inch of his muscles produced an irresistible pain. Waves of intense pain invaded his willpower. On his palms, streaks of blood were rubbed out. Tian's teeth were tightly clenched together, and between the gaps of his teeth, traces of blood could be faintly seen. 10 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. Drops of sweat seeped through his clothes and dripped down. The intense pain from all over his body rushed to his mind. On his forehead, veins popped out like dragons. I can't stop. No matter how tired I am, I can't stop. No matter how painful it is, I can't stop. I'm Tian. I'm a Fey Emperor. Even if I have to die, I will only die on the way forward. By the time he reached the 2,000 feet mark, the energy in his body was almost completely depleted. If it was an ordinary person, at this moment, he would have fallen down on the spot. But Tian still held on to the ancient vine and roared madly at himself in his mind. His face revealed a ferocious look. Ruthless. A man should be ruthless to himself. Bostong, how long can this kid last? With the strength of an ordinary person, climbing up to 100 feet is already the limit. Look at him now, his strength has been exhausted. Now, let's see how strong his willpower is. Bostong, in my opinion, this kid can at least climb up to 3,000 feet. It's hard to say. Look at his temperament. He should be an emperor. As long as he is an emperor, his willpower is far stronger than ordinary people. Maybe he can climb up to 2,000 feet. He may reach the peak. In the four gates of heaven on the altar, the consciousnesses intertwined and talked with great interest. Climb. Climb, climb, climb up even if I die. Di Tian didn't care about the scene outside at all. There was only one thought in his mind, which was to climb up to the peak. Standing on the top of the cliff, he wanted to announce to the whole world that even if he had no strength, he could still break through the limit. I'm Di Tian. I'm a Fey Emperor. Except for myself, no one can defeat me. Wherever I stand, that's the peak. Di Tian's eyes were completely covered by the flames of madness. Give up? In his dictionary, there was no such thing as giving up. Within his body, intense pain and terrible fatigue attacked Di Tian's mind, his consciousness, and his divine will. It was as if they wanted to destroy his will and destroy it. The Tao of the Emperor is to dominate heaven and earth, to control all things, to tread the four poles, to control the sun and the moon. The heart of the Emperor is to remain unfazed even if the sky collapses. The Tao of the Emperor is to remain steadfast, unyielding, unbreakable, eternally persistent, destructive, eternal. The Imperial Tyrant Heart Sutra flowed madly in his mind. Every word was like a pearl, and every line contained the supreme truths of the Tao of the Emperor. He recited it over and over again. He was supporting his own consciousness, supporting an unyielding belief. He continued to climb. Even if he died, he would die on the path forward. Bang! With the support of his faith, Di Tian climbed to the 2,000 feet mark. Finally, the endless exhaustion, as well as the endless pain all over his body, the intense pain and the terrifying pain, crashed into his consciousness like a tidal wave. In his mind, the sea of consciousness that had been opened was shattered into pieces by the impact. It was completely destroyed. However, the moment it was destroyed, the fragments of his consciousness twisted strangely, turning into mysterious purple gold words. The purple gold words quickly flew and gathered together. It was the complete Imperial Tyrant Heart Sutra. Under the mysterious power, the Imperial runes quickly gathered together. They turned into a round purple gold sphere. As soon as the sphere formed, it rushed into the Yao residence. Although the 11th rank Black Lotus in the Yao residence could not be used, the purple gold sphere penetrated everything and appeared above the 11th rank Black Lotus. It formed a mysterious connection with the Black Lotus. Shatter the consciousness, and turn it into a will. Haha, crazy Emperor, you finally gave birth to a true supreme will. However, this is only the most primitive will. You still need to temper it, a lot of tempering. Not only was Dark not worried about the collapse of the Sea of Knowledge, but he also laughed. When the consciousness collapsed, it was the best time to fuse with Di Tian's heart of the Emperor. The fusion gave birth to the Emperor's will. The moment the Emperor's will was formed, Di Tian felt that the entire world around him seemed to have changed. It became extraordinarily vivid. The battlefield was the largest training ground in the world. Almost every moment, one's spirit had to be tensed up. Even the slightest bit of carelessness could lead to death on the spot. Every time an enemy was killed, it was a kind of spur to the mind, a kind of interrogation. Killing one person was a sin. Killing 1,000 people was a hero. Killing 10 million people was a hero. Not only must they be cruel to their enemies, they must also be cruel to themselves. Boom, boom, boom. The two armies crazily collided with each other. Countless blood spurted out in an instant. Broken limbs flew everywhere. Blood dyed the earth red. After an unknown period of time, on the ancient battlefield, a slender figure stood alone with a long saber. Around him, countless corpses covered the battlefield. On the Sakra's body, there wasn't a single intact piece of flesh. His arms, thighs, pieces of flesh had been sliced off, leaving only white bones. In his abdomen, intestines were flowing out. There were countless knife wounds on his chest, and one could even see his heart. A long spear had pierced into his chest, and every wound was almost fatal. However, due to his indestructible will, he managed to retain his last breath and did not fall. I, Tion, would rather die standing than live kneeling. Boom, boom, boom. The surrounding ancient battlefield collapsed into countless pieces. The test of the second celestial stairway was endured again. Inside his body, the purple gold willpower above the 11th grade Black Lotus became more condensed and shrunk. It shrank to the size of 3 fists. Inside, every trace of willpower was tempered as if it was real. Once again, he stepped onto the 3rd celestial stairway. On the 3rd celestial stairway, Tion became a mountain man. He had to move a huge mountain away, just like a foolish old man moving a mountain. In the illusion, it took 1,000 years before the mountain was completely leveled. On the 4th celestial stairway, he was in a place with countless disasters. Almost every level was unbearable for ordinary people, and they were in danger of dying at any time. Every time, he was subjected to endless torture. However, Tion relied on his supreme willpower to survive. No matter what situation he faced, he was unwavering and unwavering. Step by step, he climbed up with irresistible force. Good boy, he not only used the celestial stairway to condense his willpower, but also used this opportunity to hone his willpower. This boy's temperament is not simple. No wonder he has the guts to meet us. He cultivates the way of the Emperor. His willpower is far stronger than ordinary people. It seems that the celestial stairway can't stop him. So what if it can't stop him? He came here just to get the 4 of us. However, it's not that easy to get the 4 of us. The laughter almost shook the entire temple. Could it be that you've lost your mind from the heavenly stairs? Laughter came from the west heavenly gate. Even an unparalleled powerhouse could not make us submit. You, a mere ancient heavenly demon, dare to have such thoughts. The ignorant are truly fearless. A sigh came from the north heavenly gate. You want to take us away and make us submit to you? What right do you have? The south heavenly gate questioned impolitely. That's right, what right do I have? Even an unparalleled powerhouse could not make them submit. What right do you have to take us away? Because I can give you new life. Because I can make you autonomous life forms. Because I can give you true freedom. Tion's gaze swept across the 4 heavenly gates like lightning. Every word that came out his mouth was filled with strong confidence. He said these words in a sonorous and forceful manner. Rumble. The entire 4 heavenly gates trembled violently in an instant. It shook in disbelief. An uncontrollable pressure came from the 4 heavenly gates. It filled every inch of space in the temple like a tidal wave. It almost crushed the temple into pieces. Fortunately, this pressure only flashed for a moment before it disappeared. What? 4 voices exclaimed at the same time. There was a strong sense of shock and disquiet in his voice. You have a way to give us new life. Their voices were filled with doubt. Just like what Tion had told Ming earlier, what an innate weapon spirit want the most? Undoubtedly, it was life, freedom, a true body, and a life with infinite possibilities. In this world, no matter if it was an innate spirit treasure or an acquired spirit treasure, rare treasure, as long as it reached the upper grade, it would be able to nurture a weapon spirit. Once it nurtured a weapon spirit, the power of the spirit treasure would increase greatly with its help. It would be easier to control it. It would have the power to change the world. Similarly, as time passed, a weapon spirit would develop intelligence that was not inferior to anyone else. It would have all kinds of divine powers in the spirit treasure, and its combat strength would be strong. Just like the 4 heavenly gates, its power was not inferior to any unparalleled powerhouse. If you want to know more, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 911. However, success and failure depended on the wind and clouds. Artifact spirits were born from innate spirit treasures and were intimately connected to the entire spirit treasure. If a spirit treasure lost its artifact spirit, it would not lose its power. It would only be slightly more difficult for the owner to control it. However, if the spirit treasure was destroyed, the artifact spirit would most likely die with it. Moreover, the artifact spirit could not leave the spirit treasure. It could only exist inside. It restricted its freedom. Of course, the artifact spirit was born from the spirit treasure. It could comprehend the laws and divine powers of the spirit treasure with half the effort. It could improve rapidly, but it was limited to the spirit treasure itself. It would be fine if it did not have intelligence. However, once it had intelligence, it could only be in the spirit treasure and could not leave. It was enough to make them suffer. Even the artifact spirits of the four directions' heavenly gates were troubled by this. No one wanted to be just an artifact spirit and not a real life. A real life that could transcend heaven and earth. Impossible. Even an unparalleled expert can't help us escape from our bodies. Moreover, we are already connected to the four directions' heavenly gates. Once we leave, our power will continue to dissipate until we completely disappear and die. You are just a little heavenly demon. What right do you have to say that you can help us escape? A calm voice came from the east heavenly gate. There was a hint of rationality in that voice. It did not lose its mind because of D. Shirtian's words. That's right, brat. If you really lied to us and played us here, then don't blame us for being impolite. We'll make you stay here forever. A ferocious shout came from the western heaven gate. However, one could still hear the uneasiness in it. I naturally wouldn't speak without thinking. D. Shirtian's face revealed a confident expression. Lunatic D, are you trying to use the method that the conjurer used to separate me, to extract them? Inside the nether prison, Ming was also confused. He did not understand where D. Shirtian's confidence came from. He shook his head and said, Moreover, you don't even know how the conjurer separated me from the book of the underworld. Nether was the artifact spirit of the Nether scripture all those years ago. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be able to leave the Nether scripture, but it just so happened that it had been inexplicably separated from the Nether scripture. If there really was a way to separate the artifact spirit from the spiritual treasure, the conjurer was obviously one of them. However, it also knew that although D. Shirtian was the source of all evil and had gathered the 7 emotions and 6 desires, he had not obtained the true inheritance of the Cursemancer. At most, he had only obtained 21 curse seals. He definitely didn't know how to separate an artifact spirit. I wonder if the 4 of you know that there's a demon god clan on the demon god continent called the Demon Soldier Clan, D. Shirtian said calmly. Demon soldier race? You're talking about the demonic soldier race that was born from the chaotic divine metal that fell from the primal chaos in the valley formed by the vicious aura contained within the axe that split the source continent and the demon god continent? A cry of surprise rang out from the southern heaven's gate. D. Shirtian nodded and said in a deep voice, That's right. It's the Demon Soldier Clan, an upper-level demon god clan in the demon god continent. Why did you mention the Demon Soldier Clan? Could it be? A thoughtful voice rang out from the northern heaven's gate. The other heaven's gates seemed to have sensed something as well. The 4 heaven's gates faintly emitted waves of pressure that could not be completely retracted. It was obvious that they were not calm. Lunatic D, you're talking about the Demon Soldier Clan that was born with demon weapons and demon treasures? Ming rolled his eyes and couldn't help but open his mouth wide. Due to the ancient war on the demon god continent, although the purple gold continent and other worlds had suffered heavy losses, they still had a good understanding of the demon god continent. There were even some races and factions that compiled the races and factions of the Fiend Celestial continent into a Fiend Celestial strategy. It recorded many things about the demon god continent. There was also an introduction of the Demon Soldier Clan. This clan was an upper-level demon god clan on the demon god continent. Moreover, they were very strange. Their original origin was born from the fusion of the axe's vicious aura with the chaotic divine metal. However, what was born were not ordinary fleshly demon gods, but various demon weapons and demon treasures. There were sabers, spears, swords, and staffs. All kinds of weapons and treasures were born. Moreover, as soon as they appeared, they had their own independent consciousness. The sabers and swords were their bodies. If that was all, they would only be demon weapons and demon treasures. They couldn't be considered a clan at all. The key was that they had a special ability. When they grew to a certain level, they could separate their consciousness from their original bodies and reincarnate, or even possess another body. Generally speaking, they would gather a large amount of natural treasures to refine a demon god's body and possess it. When they became a true demon god, their original bodies would become their natal demon weapon. When they killed, it was extremely domineering and terrifying. And the key demonic art of their clan was the art of demonic god possession. Could it be that you know of the demon soldier clan's unique demonic art, the demon god possession art? The four heavens gates asked in unison. Their voices trembled slightly. It was clear that they were extremely nervous. That's right, Tion said calmly. Haha, the demon god possession art. If this demonic art really exists, then we have hope of reincarnation. This is great. After countless years, we finally have hope of leaving the heaven's gate and becoming free. This is the #1 demonic art of possession in the world. It's most suitable for weapon spirits to possess and be reborn. The northern heaven's gate trembled in excitement. The demon god possession art was the best technique in the world for weapon spirits to possess and reincarnate. This was the key to the demon soldier clan's possession. Lunatic D, could this be the demonic art you obtained from the dragon demon crown prince's mind in the land of exile? Yes, I remember. I even interrogated him for it. When Ming heard this, he came to a sudden realization and immediately came to a realization. Don't be too happy. We are all existences comparable to unparalleled experts. If we were to possess, ordinary embryos in the world wouldn't be able to withstand our strength and would explode on the spot. Who knows, we might all die at the same time. A wise voice came from the eastern heaven's gate. He keenly noticed the crux of the matter. I have already prepared for this. Tion heard this and said confidently. A light flashed above his head, and the ancient bell of heaven's reincarnation appeared. The scrolls on the bell flickered continuously. With a thought, the bell emitted traces of the power of heaven's reincarnation. This bell is called the bell of heaven's reincarnation. Although it's only a middle-grade, connate spiritual treasure now, it contains the power of heaven's reincarnation. When you possess, you can receive the protection of the light of reincarnation. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and a psychic jade box appeared in front of him. Crack! The jade box opened, and 4 palm-sized terracotta soldiers appeared in it. He took them out and threw them in front of him. Immediately, the terracotta soldiers expanded rapidly and turned into 4 3-meter-tall, burly battle figures. Mysterious runes were densely distributed all over the body of the warrior. They intertwined with mysterious Taoist rhymes. As soon as they appeared, they naturally emitted an incomparably oppressive aura. These 4 terracotta soldiers' battle figures were made from high-grade, divine crystals. They can contain the power of an unparalleled expert in the initial stage. Furthermore, the battle figures made from divine crystals have the potential to evolve continuously. As long as you cultivate the art of demonic god possession, you can possess these 4 battle figures directly. You can completely escape the fate of being an artifact spirit. Tion pointed at the 4 battle figures and said, The 4 battle bodies of the terracotta soldiers were of the same origin as the bodies of the blood-killing guards. However, the 4 of them were made of real high-grade divine crystals. The power contained in the battle bodies was even more terrifying, and their potential was even more shocking. The art of demonic god possession, the bell of heaven's reincarnation, and the 4 powerful battle figures. Almost every step had been calculated. Almost all the follow-up matters were fully prepared. Good, good, good. The four-way Heaven's Gate was silent for a while and said excitedly, "As long as we can escape the restraints of the Heaven's Gate, we agree to your request to take away the four-way Heaven's Gate." In order to be reborn, the four-way Heaven's Gate did not hesitate. They agreed on the spot without hesitation. In order to be free, they did not hesitate to pay the price of the four-way Heaven's Gate. "I have another request," Tion suddenly said. "Say it." At this moment, the four-way Heaven's Gate, who had hope, was unprecedentedly easy to talk to. "I would like to request that the four of you can enter the demon city after the possession is successful. I will treat you as one of the four heavenly kings. Furthermore, if you're dissatisfied in the future, you can leave freely." Tion said meaningfully, "To be honest, I came to take the four-way Heaven's Gate. My purpose is to integrate the Heaven's Gate into the demon city and build the eternal God city. Once the integration is complete, we will be one." "Well said," the East Heaven's Gate said. "Even if the four of us can escape the restraints of the Heaven's Gate, we are still the weapon spirits of the Heaven's Gate and have an inseparable connection with the four-way Heaven's Gate. Even if you don't say it, we won't be too far away from the Heaven's Gate." At this moment, the four-way Heaven's Gate let out a cry of surprise. The Heaven's Gate shook, and the sky above the temple suddenly changed, turning into a light screen that displayed the scene of the purple gold continent. Tion also looked up. He saw that in the sky above the purple gold continent, the originally clear void suddenly darkened. A heavenly change happened. In the void, terrifying vortexes appeared one after another. Countless heavenly maidens danced in the void, drifting gracefully as they ascended to the immortal realm. Countless mystical heavenly flowers fell from the void, and the figures of countless gods and demons appeared. One by one, they emitted a vast and mighty power. Countless Buddhas, Arhats, and demons appeared one after another. Waves of heavenly sounds enveloped the sky. Golden lotus flowers floated down and landed on the bodies of living beings, immediately becoming unprecedentedly comfortable. Even their physiques were changing. Immortal birds and spirit beasts danced in the sky. In the blink of an eye, the sky above the purple gold continent was a strange scene. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 9:12. Those with tickets, please help me up. There were ascending immortals, hellish demonic realms, flying god fiends, and fairies descending to the mortal world. There were spirit beasts and immortal birds, mountains of white bones. A sea of blood filled the sky. All sorts of phenomena flashed in the void. Fairies and ascending immortals. Is this the descent of an immortal? Immortal, please take me in as your disciple. In the mortal world, countless commoners knelt down in excitement and shouted loudly. Heavens, look! There are white bones everywhere. There are even skeletons walking around. A mountain of bones made of white bones. There are so many skeletons. My Tao ancestors and Buddhist ancestor. Is hell about to descend to the mortal world? Countless people cried out in horror when they saw the phenomenon of white bones. They hid in their houses in fear. Heavens, there's really 100,000-foot-tall giant. Is that a god fiend? Rumble. Amidst the countless phenomena, the void trembled violently as a gigantic group of islands suddenly appeared. This group of islands was in the shape of a pyramid, increasing in number. There were a total of 9 levels. At a glance, one could not see the end of it. It occupied a space that spanned hundreds of millions of feet. Around the islands, countless mysterious golden runes constantly flashed. Every inch of soil was like a golden crystal. There were spatial rifts in it. Golden halos constantly revolved around the islands. There were a total of 9 layers. There were 9 layers of the islands. At the top, there was a gigantic island with countless temples standing on it. As for the next level, there were 9 islands. At the 3rd layer, there were 81 islands. Every layer was 9 times the number of the previous layer. There were layers upon layers. They emitted a mysterious aura. Every island was connected by thick chains. They were densely packed. They formed a special group of islands. And on the gigantic island at the top, there was a gigantic statue that was 100,000 feet tall. The statue was dressed like an emperor. However, on its forehead, there was a golden vertical eye that emitted vast divine might. It was like a peerless divine emperor between heaven and earth. The heavens declare, since ancient times, we have been living in seclusion. Our descendants have been unfilial and failed to protect the foundation of our ancestors. Today we, the three-eyed divine race, have officially returned to the purple gold continent. We have returned to our ancestral lands. Heaven and earth shall be our witness. On a myriad gods archipelago, a voice filled with boundless divine might spread out in all directions. That voice was like the edict of the heavenly Tao, deeply imprinting itself into the minds of all living beings who heard it. The three-eyed divine race had returned. Rumble. A gigantic warship that was over 10 million feet long emerged from the void. It was a terrifying white bone warship. The entire body of the ship was made from incomparably large white bones. It was incomparably tough and gave off a white, jade-like luster. On the body of the ship, there were countless runes filled with the aura of death. Countless mysterious runes interweaved together. They condensed into rings of grayish-white light, within which countless skeletons flickered. On the ship, there were numerous sky lanterns of death made of skulls. Faint flames flickered within the skulls. His empty eyes seemed to be looking around. Hanging on the ship, it added a sense of eeriness. There was not a trace of life. This was the skeleton race's white bone warship. We, the skeleton race, will return to the great earth, to the purple gold race. Anyone who dares to stop us will be killed. Kill! Kill! The skeleton race has returned to our ancestral land. Heaven and earth will bear witness. A hoarse and unpleasant shout spread out from the white bone warship. Outside the warship, countless scenes of death appeared. Countless white bone mountains and the image of the skeleton army flashed. The skeleton race has returned. Kill! 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 In the void, there were countless sounds of slaughter. Monstrous waves of blood rolled violently. A huge 9th grade blood lotus and a 9th grade blue lotus were like twin lotuses on one stem. They floated on the waves of blood. The two lotuses on one stem were sparkling and translucent. They seemed to contain countless spatial faults and were filled with endless blood. The twin lotuses shook, and a torrential river of blood appeared around the twin lotuses. In the river of blood, burly figures wearing blood-red armor and wielding blood-red sabers and blood-red tridents appeared one after another. They exuded endless battle intent and killing intent. At the same time, there were countless female Rakshasas who wore revealing clothes, had perfect figures, and seductive eyes that exuded astonishing charm. The battle intent that could slaughter the heavens and earth suppressed the surroundings. The ferocious aura almost shocked the heavens. The seductive beauty could seduce one's soul with just a smile. The Shura race and Rakshasa race have returned to the purple gold continent. Who dares to refuse? Kill! 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 From the twin lotuses, earth-shattering sounds of killing exploded. All of a sudden, the turbulent void twisted strangely. One should know that this was the Zijin continent. The Zijin continent's space barrier was many times stronger than the space barrier of the 10,000 worlds. Even the strongest of the 10,000 worlds would find it difficult to break through the space barrier. Only this place could truly withstand the intense battle between the strongest of the 10,000 worlds. However, the sound of killing shook the space to the point of distorting. It was extraordinarily terrifying. The Shura race and Rakshasa race have returned. Rumble. A huge ancient tree appeared in a flash from the void. On the ancient tree, there were countless nests. Inside, there were countless members of the winged race with wings on their backs. All of them had bows and arrows on their backs, and they exuded an extraordinary aura. For thousands of years, our descendants have been unfilial and avoided our homeland. Today, the winged race has returned to the purple gold continent. Anyone who dares to stop us will be the enemy of the winged race. The winged race has returned. Roar! Countless phoenix cries that sounded like the sounds of nature pierced through the sky. A huge island appeared. On the island, there were countless ancient parasol trees that emitted a fiery light. On the island, countless phoenixes and lawns danced. In the sky above the island, there was a scene of countless immortal birds worshipping the island. It was the legendary scene of hundreds of birds worshipping the phoenix. This was the phoenix race's Phoenix Island. The phoenix race had returned. Following that, a huge divine mountain appeared in the sky. In the sky above the divine mountain, gigantic cheilants roared toward the sky. Their majestic aura swept across the land like a tide. Countless heavenly sounds appeared in the surroundings. Millions of rays of light shot out, and the auspicious signs were incessant. This was the Cheelan divine mountain of the Cheelan race. The Cheelan race had returned. Rumble. In a remote area of the purple gold continent, pitch-black chi of the netherworld rushed out of the ground. It rolled and rushed into the sky, forming layers of dark clouds. In the dark clouds, a huge pitch-black ancient city appeared in midair. Countless ghost flags danced in the ancient city. In the city, there were countless ancient tombs. Those were the cave abodes where the malicious ghosts lived. Some of the tombs had the name of a certain written on the tombstones. It was an extremely unique ancient city. It was a characteristic of the ghost race. There were many ghosts in the city. On the city gate, 4 ancient characters appeared. City of the wrongful death. Monstrous ghost Chi shook the surroundings. Vaguely, there were countless ghostly howls that reverberated in the air. It was chilling. The ghost race had returned. Following that, all kinds of strange phenomena appeared like bamboo shoots after the rain. The giant race, beast race, angel race, force race, shadow race, and other races used all kinds of methods. Huge islands, ancient cities, immortal abodes, divine mountains, and so on appeared one after another in the void. They competed with each other in the air. Countless strange phenomena appeared. Whoosh! Just as the various clans were returning one after another, a crisp sound suddenly rang out in the void. Amidst the sound, one could clearly see that incomparably thick, pitch-black chains were wantonly dancing in the air like the tentacles of an octopus. As they moved, it seemed that the chains contained a mysterious law. The chains emitted the charm of death. Boom! After the chains appeared, a huge black pagoda suddenly appeared. Those chains were connected to the black pagoda. This black pagoda was extremely huge. It was no less than 100,000 feet tall. The pagoda was divided into 9 levels. On each level of the pagoda, there were small windows. Looking through those windows, one could clearly see that inside the pagoda was a vast space. There were terrifying coffins everywhere. Each coffin was constantly absorbing a huge amount of resentment, evil energy, blood energy, and yin energy. Roar! In the pagoda, countless roars filled with evil energy broke out of the pagoda. It was as if they wanted to suppress the other races on the spot. The Zombie God Pagoda. This is the Zombie God Pagoda from the ancient times. Even the zombie race that has been in hiding for countless years is coming back. The zombie race. It seems that the immeasurable calamity is coming. All the races are coming back. In the void, cries of surprise sounded. This pagoda was the zombie race's most precious treasure, the Zombie God Pagoda. The zombie race had returned. Following that, all the major races returned. The entire void was filled with all kinds of strange phenomena. In the eyes of the living beings on the purple gold mainland, the shock in their hearts swept through their hearts like a tidal wave. The cultivation world on the continent could not help but remain silent. They dared to provoke the demon race. However, in the face of the 100 races that had returned, it would be an idiotic move to stop them. Then, All the races looked for bases and occupied them. They wanted to completely settle down on the purple gold mainland. Bang! In the Four Cardinal Palace, the original light screen instantly shattered like glass. In the blink of an eye, it shattered and disappeared. The 100 races from the ancient times have returned. As expected, this world has reached the peak of another great era. Demon Emperor, quickly give us the demon god possession art. After we finish cultivating, we can quickly possess and be reborn. This kind of era is really too exciting. Urging voices came from the four cardinal heavenly gates. D. Chertion did not hesitate much. With a wave of his hand, he condensed the demon god possession art into 4 demonic manuals and sent them into the 4 cardinal heavenly gates. However, a thoughtful expression appeared on his face as he muttered to himself. The 100 races from the ancient times have finally returned to the purple gold mainland. Although the human race did not stop them just now, it seems that it is because today is the day of the 100 races' return. Once they stop them, the 100 races will unite against a common enemy. They will suffer the joint attack of the 100 races. This is avoiding the strong and welcoming the weak. If we miss today, I'm afraid the human race will definitely make a move. The return of the 100 races did not surprise D. Chertion too much. This was already an unstoppable trend, an unchangeable fact. However, this action was undoubtedly an invisible provocation to the human race. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 9:13. Since the ancient times, the human race had occupied the leading position of the world. Indeed, to a large extent, they had obtained great benefits. For example, the human race had almost monopolized the origin world of the purple gold mainland. The various resources and vast territories inside allowed the human race to develop at an unimaginable speed every day. What was even more terrifying was that the various minerals on the purple gold mainland would be reborn with the help of the chaotic chi absorbed from the chaotic world after they were excavated. All kinds of resources were almost inexhaustible, as vast as the sea. Unlike the other worlds, once the minerals were excavated and stepped on, they could not be recovered. This was the strength of the purple gold mainland that could directly communicate with the chaotic world. In addition, the human race occupied a large territory and had no natural enemies. Their development speed could be imagined. The benefits they obtained were almost shocking, and no one knew how many experts they had nurtured. Now that the 100 ancient races had returned, it was undoubtedly a fundamental challenge to the human race's dominant position. It would also invisibly reduce the human race's status and even their living space and development space. All kinds of resources would be greatly weakened. Given the human race's nature, those who were not of their race would definitely have different intentions. Even if you beat D. Chertion to death, he wouldn't believe that they would allow the ancient 100 clans to return to the mainland without taking any measures. Right now, they were only temporarily avoiding the 100 clans. Not everyone in the 100 clans were of the same mind. There are definitely many conflicts between clans. These have nothing to do with you for now, Lunatic D. The most important thing for you now is to quickly integrate the 4 directions heavenly gates into the demon city. With the 4 directions heavenly gates guarding, the demon city can be considered as truly suppressing the 4 directions. Unbreakable since ancient times. Dark narrowed his eyes and said strangely, above the southern wilderness, an incomparably huge ancient city stood in midair, surrounded by countless snow-white auspicious clouds. The 4 directions heavenly gates were faintly discernible in the clouds. Although there were millions of rays of light shooting out, the ancient city naturally emitted an ancient and mysterious pressure that made people not dare to look directly at it. There was a pavilion in the 100-flower garden of the Jade Lake. She was seated in the pavilion, wearing a gorgeous phoenix robe. His hand formed a mysterious 100-flower seal. His body was like a black hole, quickly absorbing the vast, natural hundred-flower essence that filled the hundred-flower garden into his body. Strands of hundred flowers essence, chi, took the form of all kinds of flowers around him. They would vanish from time to time, making the surroundings look exceptionally dreamy and gorgeous. Chun-Shi, who was wrapped in the hundred flowers essence chi, was like a sacred and inviolable hundred flowers fairy. She had received the legacy of Goddess Hundred Flowers and cultivated a supreme technique of her lineage, the Hundred Flowers Heavenly Mirror. As long as she had abundant Hundred Flowers energy, her cultivation speed would be incredible. After a long time, the hundred flower essence around him was completely devoured. He opened his eyes and slowly exhaled. He sighed and said, "Peak ancient demon sage. I'm only one step away from becoming an ancient heavenly demon." The divine light in his eyes quickly became restrained. Her aptitude could be said to be unparalleled. She was an instant god flower, a wonder among all the wondrous flowers in the world. She had astonishing talent for the hundred flowers heavenly mirror. When she cultivated, it was as if the various obstacles in front of her didn't exist. In addition to the innate hundred flowers essence chi produced by the countless wondrous flowers in the hundred flower garden, her cultivation speed became even faster. Moreover, there was abundant natural origin chi in the Thousand Demon City at all times. It could be said to be a holy land for cultivation. Sister-in-law, you're done cultivating. Outside the pavilion, a little girl in a snow-white dress skipped in. Her face was red as she blinked at Chun-Shi. "Ling, you're here. How is mother?" Chun-Shi saw Little White, and a warm smile bloomed on his face. Mother has been cultivating the white tiger sacred technique in seclusion recently. She doesn't have time to talk to Ling. Ling grumbled in a low voice. Naturally, she wanted to talk to the Empress Mother every day and act coquettishly. However, after the Empress Mother woke up and knew about the situation of the demon race, she didn't say much. She took the white tiger sacred technique and went into seclusion in the exquisite pagoda. She wanted to completely awaken the bloodline in her body and achieve the white tiger sacred body. She couldn't let her child bear all this alone. When Chun-Shi heard this, her eyes revealed a look of understanding. Sister-in-law Ling wants to go to the forbidden area in the back mountain of the Thousand Demon Valley. Ling looked up at Chun-Shi and suddenly said, "You want to go to the forbidden area?" Chun-Shi frowned slightly and looked at her hesitantly. He said, "That forbidden area in the valley was personally ordered by your brother. No one is allowed to go near or even enter. Moreover, the ancient tomb in the valley is extremely strange and extremely dangerous. Back then, True Lord Ku Rong didn't even have time to react and was directly crushed to death. Sister-in-law can't promise you." She frowned slightly and thought for a moment before refusing. She didn't agree. That ancient tomb was too mysterious. The reason why the entire southern barbarian had become an ice region was related to that ancient tomb. She couldn't agree to let Xiao Bai go to the forbidden area no matter what. Otherwise, if something happened, she would blame herself for the rest of her life. "Yin and you, I wanted to play with you before. Let's go together later." Chun-Shi looked at Xiao Bai with a smile. Suddenly, at this moment, all of a sudden, a terrifying pressure came from the void. Above the ancient city, a strange vortex appeared. What is that? What strong pressure? It's not inferior to the Thousand Demon City at all. My goodness, could it be that a peerless expert has appeared and wants to kill the Thousand Demon City and smash this supreme artifact into pieces? Quick, look! Why did the heavenly gates suddenly fly away? The sudden emergence of a vast pressure almost instantly swept through the entire Thousand Demon City, causing countless cultivators and demons in the city to wake up. Then they were dumbfounded. The four gates of heaven, which were originally standing in the four directions of the Thousand Demon City and guarding the four extremes, strangely flew into the sky, leaving their original positions and flying into the jade pool. What's going on? The four gates of heaven are guarding the four directions, and no one in the Thousand Demon City can move it. Except for sure Tion, no one can move it at all. This is the gate of the 1,000-demon city. She also looked at the 4 gates of heaven flying into the jade pool in surprise and murmured doubtfully. The 1,000-demon city had no city walls, and the 4 gates of heaven were the gateways guarding it. Once they disappeared, it was equivalent to opening up the entire ancient city, which was not an ordinary danger. It must be my brother's doing. Di Ling heard and immediately agreed. Before the countless demons in the city could be surprised by the changes in front of them, for ancient gates of heaven suddenly rushed out of the vortex in the void. On the gates of heaven, ancient seal scripts flashed respectively. East, west, south, and north seal scripts emerged. Boom, boom, boom. The newly appeared 4 gates of heaven rotated violently in midair and immediately fell in the 4 directions, east, west, north, and south, where the 4 gates of heaven originally stood. Boom, boom, boom. In just an instant, the entire 1,000-demon city roared violently. The moment the 4 gates of heaven fell, they completely merged with the ancient city, and countless mysterious runes perfectly combined the gates of heaven and the ancient city. For invisible barriers instantly enveloped the entire ancient city completely. The 4 gates of heaven, like an eternal and indestructible God, stood proudly in all directions. Just by standing there quietly, he naturally exuded a powerful aura that would never be broken. The gates of heaven and the ancient city merged and could no longer be separated. They truly became a whole. Buzz, in the well of gods and devils, in the original 129,600 spaces, countless things emerged strangely. Suddenly, strange spaces appeared one after another, overlapping and merging with the original space. Suddenly, the space that was mostly empty expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, in the space, strange earth, soil, all kinds of ancient trees, and a large number of creatures emerged. Countless birds and beasts. Some spaces either became deserts, volcanoes, or seas. Amazing transformations took place at a speed visible to the naked eye. Every space was different. It was as if these spaces had suddenly grown for thousands of years. In the core space, the Emperor's Jade archive spun at an unprecedented speed, rapidly absorbing a huge amount of chaotic chi from the chaotic world and poured it into the 129,600 spaces in the ancient city, stabilizing the tremors caused by the expansion of those spaces and stabilizing the space barrier. It poured into the space, allowing the new things that appeared to be completely integrated into the space. Mysterious power emitted from the 4 gates of heaven and poured into the ancient city. On the ancient city, countless mysterious runes intertwined. In an instant, the entire ancient city became more tenacious and powerful. In just an instant, the 1,000-demon city was promoted from the early stage of the supreme artifact to the peak of the middle stage. Compared to before, it was more powerful and stable. What's going on? The 4 gates of heaven seem to be a little different. It seems that the entire 1,000-demon city has an ancient aura. I seem to feel that the entire ancient city has become stronger. Is it because of the new gates of heaven? Look, there are 4 war bodies outside the gates of heaven. When they came back to their senses, they all looked outside the gates of heaven in a daze. Outside the 4 gates of heaven, in front of each gate, there was a 3-meter-tall war body. They stood in front of the gate like statues, emitting an ancient aura from their war bodies. It made the surroundings feel a strange pressure. One could tell at a glance that they were extraordinary. TSK, TSK. The 4 gates of heaven have finally returned. Outside the forbidden land of heaven, Ming shouted excitedly. Moreover, even the spaces connected to the various gates of heaven and the forbidden land of heaven have all merged with the 129,600 spaces in the 1,000-demon city. This time, we save a lot of effort. The wealth contained in the original forbidden land of heaven has all belonged to the 1,000-demon city. The biggest gain is actually the 4 great weapon spirits, the heavenly human clan and the elf clan. Tirtian smiled faintly as he looked at the void. His eyes seemed to be able to penetrate space and directly see the distant thousand-demon city. He was also overjoyed. This time, the forbidden land of heaven could be said to be a fruitful trip. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.